Thank you for listening to the Kyle and Tim podcast, where we have authentic conversations that help cultivate a better understanding of ourselves, our guests, and the world we live in. This podcast is about our guests, getting to know them, their backgrounds, experiences, thoughts, and ideas. We really appreciate you listening. Before we introduce our next guest, we'd like to introduce a few of our sponsors that help make this podcast possible.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mountain Mule Transportation, located here in Bozeman, Montana. Mountain Mule is a private SUV and truck service, offering chauffeur services in all of southwest Montana. Whether it's your next skiing, hunting, or fishing trip, early morning or late night trips to and from Bozeman Airport, as well as weddings and private parties. No matter the occasion, Mountain Mule will get you there safely and on time. To learn more, visit mountain-mule.com and book today.
All right. Hi, I'm Kraig. Welcome to the Kyle and Tim podcast.
What did we talk about today?
We talked about all kinds of stuff.
North California.
Talked about North California. We talked about Montana. We talked about traveling the world. We talked about recharging the psychological, emotional batteries. We talked about talking with people and interacting and sharing ideas and going a little deeper than the surface as far as conversation and building relationships and getting to know people. Talked a lot about the outdoors and the enjoyment that one can find, the peace that one can find in the outdoors, and talked about vehicles and trucks, and didn't talk a lot about guns.
No, not too much.
A little bit about some of the books you've read, found helpful.
We did some literature and a little recap on books read. So yeah, military background, life background, work background.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thanks, man.
A pleasure with you guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kraig, where are you? I still don't even know this. Where are you from?
All right. So I'm from Northern California. I'll say North California because Northern California, especially people from North California, they tend to be categorized into the Bay Area or Napa Valley. And so North Californians don't like that. And so I'm from North California, which is, we consider pretty much everything north of Williams. I'm from a little town called Dunsmear. It's a little railroad town on the I-5 corridor, just off of the Sacramento River, the Upper Sac. I was born in Mount Shasta, which is just a little community just north of Dunsmear. North California. Grew up on the south side of Mount Shasta, looking at Mount Shasta, and it's a very mountainous region. Shasta Lake, the Trinity Alps. Mount Lassen's not very far away. The Oregon border's, 55 miles north. So we in North California, we relate a lot more to Southern Oregon, kind of our own. There's some people know about the state of Jefferson or the concept of the state of Jefferson. So that's where I'm from.
How's that? Is any of that area familiar to you?
Yeah, so I went to Chico State.
Oh, yeah.
And I spent a lot of time separate of like going to school up there. I spent a lot of time in the area camping. So we'd go to Lake Shasta every year. I think we went like 6 years in a row. We'd go camping on the lake for like a week or 10 days every summer. My uncle lived in Central Oregon, and so I spent a lot of time in Central Oregon too. So
nice.
Such a great area.
It really is.
It's so cool.
You don't really realize it because
it's like Montana, actually. It's like Bozeman.
It'd be like the Bitterroot in a lot of ways. I consider a little more of the Bitterroot. Just because of the constant mountains, the constant trees, it's not, you don't have the valley, a range of mountains and then a valley and then a range of mountains like you have here.
Yeah.
It's pretty constant throughout the whole north until you get down, at least until Redding. There you start to get down into the North Central Valley or what have you there.
And that mountain range is the Trinity Alps. So
there's it's similar to here in Bozeman, right? As you have all of the mountains around the Bozeman area, we're in the Rocky Mountain range, but it's not a constant range, a continuous range. It's made up of, hundreds of ranges that extend from New Mexico up to Canada. And so in California there, North California, I might slip and say Northern California because that's how I grew up saying it. But so you have the Trinity Alps are west of Dunsmear, almost immediately west. And that's more as you're starting to get over toward kind of I wouldn't say the coastal range, but you're kind of starting to get over to the coast. But you have The Shasta Cascades is the major range.
Yeah.
And then you have the Sierra Nevadas, which are a little more to the east and south.
Mm-hmm.
But really the Shasta Cascade Mountains would be that area.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
North.
There's a song about North California. You know the one I'm talking about?
Well, there's lots of songs about North California, but there's mention of North. I don't know if you're talking about.
There's a pretty popular one.
Hank Williams from North California and South Alabama.
Yeah.
I remind people that there's no mention of Montana in there other than the Rocky Mountains. So, North California gets its own. Yeah. Anybody who's been there, they know. But anybody who hasn't been there, they don't know. And you've been there, so you know.
Yeah.
Well, you're reminding me of upstate New York because I grew up like 130 miles north of the city, but it's not like you can keep going north another 3 hours and you can go way west. And so I'll tell people I'm from upstate New York, like, oh, that's not upstate. I'm like, oh, it's not upstate enough. Like there's tiers for your qualification, but everyone will make sure they say upstate because they want to distinctify that they're not from the city because it's a night and day difference. But like I haven't been, but that's from what I hear is Northern California and Southern California are night and day difference. And I just know because I grew up in upstate New York, and New York has third most dairy farms in the U.S., but California has the most. And that's what everyone said. And I'm like, oh, this must be the same. Like, same thing. You got a huge city on the south, but there's a giant farmland and ag, which is what I'm under the impression that most of the northern half of California is. Yeah.
Actually, I'd say more central and actually parts of Southern California in some ways. It depends on how far south you want to go. North California, it's ag, it's some ag, but it's actually a lot more. I mean, growing up, it was timber and railroad.
Okay.
And so when you have constant mountains, it's not a lot of ag in the sense of farming. I mean, you have to be down in one of the river valleys. So you have to be down in the, like starting in Redding is now you're starting to get in ag area, Redding, Red Bluff, Chico. And then as you go farther, San Joaquin and what have you is you need those valleys versus, you can't have dairy farms in the trees. And so when I grew up, it was all railroad and timber, some ag, Wairika, some ag areas in some of the smaller valleys. But it was more mountains. And then that died out. The spotted owl and the timber industry started to close down. The local mills, McLeod, Mount Shasta, started to close down. I don't know, in kind of the late 80s. Railroad changed, steam to diesel, and then just the crew sizes, and it changed the railroad. So it's the area has kind of died in a way for economics. It's more of a tourist area. There's a lot of poverty there. More recreation. You have a lot of people that do come up from the Bay Area to have second homes that come up there and fish. Some pretty tremendous fishing opportunities in some of the upper rivers, and then lakes too. There's water everywhere. It's real similar water wise in a lot of ways to like the Flathead Valley. It's there's a little lake every 7 miles, in some places. And so you can hike in and fish and go hike to another lake and fish, and you could be fishing all over. So it's pretty well known for that. But economically, it's lots of government jobs, Forest Service, CAL FIRE, those kinds of things anymore.
What's the population there? What was it when you were growing up?
So Dunsmear, when I was there, about 2,500 people, so give or take. And I think now it's down below 2,000. It's kind of dwindled. And at one point, I think back in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, it was up at 10,000 or so. I mean, the railroad was huge. That defined the
So
town.
That was the industry.
That was the industry. Originally it was called Pusher. The Dunsmear was Pusher, and then Alexander Dunsmear, who was a coal baron from Canada, came through on a train in 1886, and he liked the area, and he stopped in Dunsmear and said, "If you guys name the town after me, I'll provide you guys with a water well." And so he did, and that well it's in the city park now. So they named it Dunsmear after him, but it's Pusher because it's the bottom of the Siskiyou grade, or I shouldn't say the Siskiyou grade because that's more going up into Oregon, but it's at the bottom of the grade going up to Mount Shasta. So they would add steam engines to get the cargo up the hill. So it's called Pusher, so they could push the engines up, and then they changed it to Dunsmear, and it's stuck ever since.
What did your father do growing up?
He's a railroader.
Okay.
My family. So my dad's dad is from North Dakota, and he was a farmer. He grew up as a farm boy. just big, tall, gangly guy. He didn't quite make it through the 8th grade. He beat up the school principal. They kicked him out of school. He got a job working for the Central Pacific Railroad, I think, there for a while. And then at one point they transferred him, or he had the opportunity to transfer to California.
This is your dad or your grandfather?
This is my grandpa.
Okay.
And so he went to Dunsmear, met my grandma, who had already been married and had kids from previous marriage. And then he worked for the Southern Pacific Railroad. And then from there, my dad worked for the Southern Pacific Railroad. And in 92, there was a train derailment, spilled a bunch of methyl sodium in the Sacramento River just above Dunsmear. And that was kind of the start of the end of the Southern Pacific Railroad. And then eventually Southern Pacific was bought out by Union Pacific. And so my dad finished out his career the last few years with the Union Pacific.
Because they had like a big lawsuit or something.
They had a huge lawsuit.
So
basically
they basically went out of business.
Exactly. And then my oldest brother, he ended up eventually hiring on with the Union Pacific. So 3 generations of railroaders. My oldest brother still works for UP out of Reading.
How many brothers do you have?
I'm the youngest of 3.
Okay. So, and no boys, just the 3, or no girls, just the 3 of you?
Yep. Just my poor mom. Yep. 3 boys, Kevin, Kyle, Kraig, and all K's. My parents like the K's. And my oldest brother's 5 years older than I am. My middle brother's got 3 years on me. So we were fairly close. I was a fresh. My 2 brothers were in high school together for 2 years, and then I was a freshman when my middle brother was a senior. So we all, got to spend a little time together. We were close enough that we're close.
Yeah, that's like exactly like my brothers.
Yeah.
Kind of like your family too.
Yeah, I got a brother, 2 sisters. We're all 2 years, like so within a year, we're all 2 years apart. Yeah. What are your parents' names?
So my dad is Joseph, and then my mom is Patty, Patricia.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know where the K's came from.
Yeah, they with the Koschnick or something there with the last name, I guess there, but we're not racist. I swear. We grew up in a very, very, open viewed. Don't get too caught up in the K's. There's only 2, not 3.
Man, what a cool place to grow up.
I think you take for granted when you're young, there's that almost an ignorance, a lack of experience. And so I took it for granted. I just thought everywhere was like that in a lot of ways. And looking back, I had a great childhood. It was we were free ranged. We were raised free range.
Yeah.
My dad was always working. The railroad's a rough job. Anybody who knows, that job anyways, is he would be gone for 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours. And when he was home, he was sleeping or doing his own thing. So my dad wasn't around a whole bunch. And so my mom was kind of left to take care of us or watch over us. And I think by the time I came along, she was pretty tired and she went and did her own thing as far as work goes. She was a beautician. And so, my brothers, they raised me, or we raised each other in a roundabout way, but more me being the baby is, my oldest brother was kind of my father figure in a lot of ways. Mm. My middle brother, in different ways. And so in the town I grew up in is everybody knew everybody. There was no concern or worry. You were going somewhere, you just say, hey, I'm going out, I'll be back, or go for a bike ride, or, go up and play in the woods or go down to the river. So yeah, very, very independent, very free, beautiful. And you get a driver's license, and next thing you know is you got a shotgun in the front seat and you're out bird hunting in the fall, or, you're out exploring, you're driving the back country and figuring out the woods, and it just opens things up even more. And so, yeah, I have no complaints at all of where I grew up.
Did you say, you got a military background? Was your father in the military or no?
My dad was a guardsman in the California Guard. He was I think either a mechanic or a truck driver. And I think it was more by luck. So it was during Vietnam era. And I think he was looking to join the Guard, and he ended up going up, talking to the Guard, joined. And then when he got home, he had a draft notice from the active duty. And so he took it back up to his Guard recruiter and said, hey, I just got drafted. The Guard guy took it and said, nah, you're with us. So he was, but he wasn't very long. I think it was maybe 1 enlistment. He didn't, I wouldn't say he has a true background. He never deployed. But I mean, he, did basic training and what have you. So, yeah.
What about your brothers?
I didn't know there was a California Guard.
Yeah.
I always thought like a National Guard and
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the California National Guard.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's all. Every state has their
Okay.
guard. So, yeah, the California Army National Guard.
Okay.
Be the same as anywhere.
Okay. I didn't. Okay. Got it.
Yep. Nope. Neither one of my brothers has a military background. My going back, my grandpa, my dad's dad, the railroader, he was, during World War II, as the railroad was exempt because of they needed people to run the railroad to move supplies. So he never was served. My mom's dad served in the Army. He served in the South Pacific, Japan. He was Army. And then I've got a few uncles. One uncle was Army in Vietnam. One uncle retired from the Air Force. I have a cousin who graduated from the Air Force Academy. I think he's a lieutenant colonel now, maybe a full board colonel. He's in the military. So a little bit of a military background, but not direct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you why you went to the military, but I wanted to ask you what it was like growing up first.
Yeah, no real influence as far as other than, I grew up in the 80s. So we watched Top Gun and we watched, Red Dawn. And so, it's very much the end of the Cold War. So on our mind, when we'd go play Army, we'd play Capture the Flag, we'd camo up. So we played Army growing up. Mm-hmm. But as far as a direct influence, other than my grandpa, but my grandpa never really talked because my grandpa was local. Everybody lived within Dunsmear, Mount Shasta, my immediate family, with the exception of one grandma. And so, to hear stories, but he didn't talk about it a lot until I got a little older. So it wasn't like there was a real influence on the military or being pushed to go into the military. So.
Yeah. So what was it? I mean, what was it like growing up? What'd you guys do as kids with your brothers?
Oh, we were, bikes. We had our bikes. We would always be, fixing bikes, taking bikes for bike rides. We'd be playing in the woods. We'd be building forts. We'd be, Capture the Flag was a big thing. We in our neighborhood was a big thing. The whole neighborhood would kind of get into it. We had boundaries. Going camping, fishing. It depended on what time of the year. Northern California, there is when it snows. Like you get dumped on like 4 feet, 5 feet of snow. So Mount Shasta there, the ski park, I think the original ski bowl, there was an avalanche back in the late 70s or so, and they closed it down. And then Mount Shasta ski bowl opened up in 85, Mount Shasta ski park opened in 85. And so, started learning how to ski. Skiing was a big thing, but we just were always.
Is there still a resort like a ski?
That Mount Shasta ski park is there. Yep. And they keep expanding. I think they're up to when they first opened, they had 2 lifts. And now I think they have 3 or 4.
Okay. So, got it. But it's still pretty small.
It's not.
Yeah.
There's no way it would compete with, I would say it's bigger than like Great Divide in Helena there. It's more Ma and Pa than Great Divide.
Got it.
But it's by no means a Bridger or a Big Sky.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a great little park.
Cool.
When they have snow, it's great.
Sweet.
So, I love the outdoors, water, anything involved with water, rivers, lakes, small lakes. I'm not a big lake kind of guy. Like Shasta is almost too big for me.
It's a big lake.
But just outside and we grew up with the dog. There was always the dog was in tow. That Sacramento River, if we weren't fishing it, we were tubing it. We were picking blackberries. We were, just depending on whatever. We were always outside. And then you get a little older, I think. Then we
and the
have
Sac,
jobs.
Is the Sac pretty shallow up there? Or is it pretty deep up there?
No, because the Sac technically starts Shasta Lake, Siskiyou Lake is kind of the beginning of true Sac River.
Sure.
The headwaters are above that, but and it depends on the year. This time of year, usually like March, April, as the flow can be pretty good, but it's a relatively shallow river. What would I compare it to? I'd say the Upper Gallatin, like the upper Gallatin. Once you get up above Big Sky, before Storm Castle flows into it and Hell's Roaring, and some of the bigger tributaries come into the Upper Gallatin is that would be more the Sac.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I know the Sac on the other side of the.
Yeah, below Shasta, it's a different monster.
It's like the Lower Madison.
It's a big river. That's a tremendous.
It's wide and shallow.
Yep. There's no way you could get a motorboat on the Upper Sac.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Did you guys do much hunting?
We did. My dad was his spare time. He was very much into reloading, and he liked his guns. He was a product of kind of the Dirty Harry era. He was a big Clint Eastwood fan. So my dad liked his big caliber handguns. But we also, so when we were 10, for our birthday, we got a 22, all three of us. When we were 11, we were given a shotgun, like just a little break action New England shotgun. And then when we were 12, we got our deer rifle, and he'd let us kind of give us some variety. And within reason, he'd let us pick what it was that we wanted. So we grew up hunting, squirrels. We shoot and eat gray squirrels. I'm not scared to say I'm not too proud. Gray squirrels and quail, and then some deer hunting. We weren't like diehard. And then as we got older into high school, it just was hard between football, because hunting season's during football season, and then jobs and everything else, and so kind of petered out. But as I went into college there, I did 2 years of college there, junior college in Weed. As I scheduled my fall schedule around.
There's a town called Weed.
There's a town called Weed,
California.
Yeah. So okay, cool.
And we'd play them in high school. They weren't in our same conference. They were a step up, but we'd play them preseason, and it was always smoke weed. Smoke weed. That would be the, it's
Yeah.
But weed. So there's a little junior college there too. But so I as I went into junior colleges, I got a lot more involved. Not necessarily the big game hunting, but I was an avid bird hunter. Quail, grouse. I would just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would stack my 19 credits, and Tuesday, Thursday, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and throw the dog in the truck and water and pack lunch and some sardines and crackers and take off. And I would get home at 8 o'clock at night. And
what kind of dog?
He was at that time he was like a Brittany golden retriever mix. He's kind of a goofy little dog, but he was a great little hunter. He was really a good dog.
Do you have dogs now or no?
Oh yeah, I'm a dog guy. We got 3.
What do you have?
We got an 8-year-old yellow male lab. He's just a big goofy dog, and then we have we just got a female chocolate lab. She's a little over a year old, and she's just
on fire.
The sweetest little dog that I've ever known. She's just a doll. And then I have a 4-year-old corgi male.
Okay.
I like my corgis. This is my second corgi. So, but I hunt the labs, do duck and waterfowl up mostly up around the freeze out lake area. But here there's some good grouse hunting here around the bangtails and the backside of the bridgers. There's some good grouse here.
Yeah, the bangtail's a good spot. Like if you don't run into people anyway, if you get in there at the right middle of the week or something. Or
yeah, was it you and I? It was. I think it was you and I, right? We were on a run, and those grouse came after us.
Oh yeah, that was on the bank. That was on the that was on the bridgers, but not the bangtails. But I remember that. No, we just ran up on one. We ran up on one,
and it scared the shit out of us because. Like it chased us off the trail, like it charged at us, and we didn't even know it was there until and then
Yeah, they can startle you. That the flush of the wings, sometimes almost sounds like a rattlesnake.
Yeah. But
yeah, they can startle. They'll hold pretty good.
That's fun. Yeah, I had a lab forever. I love labs.
We grew up. We had a Cocker Spaniel early on, then we had the Brittany Golden Retriever mix. Then I didn't have a dog for a while when I moved here, and then actually. That Brittany Golden Retriever came here, and I had him for a little while until he passed away. But to have a good, if you're a cow person and you're out, it's nice to have that companion of the cow dog to watch them work. If you're a hunter, I'm a big believer is, have that hunting companion. Is dogs just make whatever it is you're doing, and if they can complement what you're doing, to me is. It's magical. It's the whole reason why dogs were domesticated, and it's I love it. Ours are not just working dogs. I mean, they're more family pets, but just to have that experience with them, you're never alone. I'm a huge dog fan, and the labs, the labs are my wife. That's my wife more so. But I've fallen in love with them, and she's pretty busy. So I have a tendency, the dogs are kind of more mine. They're, but yeah, I'm a lab fan too.
I've been saying that I wouldn't get another lab or another dog till I'm in a steady or serious relationship. So I'm now I'm getting pretty close to getting another dog. I just to take care of it on myself. I know it wouldn't get the attention it needs, but if it was 2 of us, we could.
Sure. No. And and what a great way to, to help. I mean, bond the relationship too is have a dog, forces you dogs. You got to get them out. You got to walk them. You got to take care of them, and it's a good responsibility check,
Yeah. I remember I got that lab I got when I was 18. He was a puppy. That was a wake up call.
Yeah. The labs are tough too, because I mean, even at 8, our yellow lab he is still a puppy. I mean, that dog is not, he's starting to slow down, but he is a puppy. And labs, they're full throttle. They are 100 miles an hour until they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah,
they gotta have something to do, or they got a lot of energy.
or they will
Oakley
find.
was a good dog, man.
Yeah, he was a good.
Oakley was a good dog.
That dog I hit. I like played baseball most of my life. I just hit him a baseball with a bat for 30 to 45 minutes until he just couldn't anymore. But it was every day, and that's all he wanted.
Yeah, they do. They definitely have the ball fetish. The labs.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
because he'd bring you the ball back.
Yeah,
it's good training.
Yeah,
especially throw a little scent on there.
Yeah,
no, it's great. Yeah, the dogs are awesome.
You said you're a big football fan. You played football in high school?
I did. I played all 4 years of high school. My oldest brother was the assistant coach for my freshman and sophomore year. So I played all 4 years. We kind of played. We were a small school, so pretty much all of the guys, everybody in the high school would play. If you didn't, then something was kind of wrong with you, because we didn't do cuts. We didn't do cuts because it was so small. And a lot of times people would play, we played both ways. So, I played, I was, kind of played all over early on. I was like a nose guard. Cause I've not that I've always been this big, like this is my winter weight, which has turned into my everyday weight as I've gotten older. But I, even in high school, I was a big boy. I mean, I was well over 6 foot. And
how tall are you now?
I just went to do my physical. I lost an inch. I'm 6'2". Okay. So I'm starting to go the other way. So nose guard, end both ways, tight end for offense, defensive end on defense, whatever. And then, just kind of all over, but mostly end.
There might be something, you just made me think, where you did that physical, because I've been telling everyone I'm 5'7" and said I was 5'6". I'm like, man, I've been lying to people, but I think it might be off. It might be good.
Typically I'm 6'3". I've been 6'3" but I, as I've gotten older, as my feet are growing, like I was 14 up until I was 14, and I was there, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I had to start getting 15s because I think my foot's collapsing. So I'm losing my arch, and I lost my inch.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a big foot.
It's a big foot. Yeah. I'm constantly tripping on them, those stairs are an ass kicker.
I got my cousin, I think his dad's 6'6", he's 6'7", and his brother's 6'8". I don't know what the hell size their feet are, but yeah, he's like as goofy and as clumsy as they come. He can hardly walk a straight line over himself.
Well, it takes a little while to figure it out. I mean, to figure your body out. And I was goofy and clumsy all the way through high school. And it wasn't really until college that I started to get, I would say, a little more graceful, but I would still say it wasn't very graceful. Yeah, I'm clumsy. And my banana hands too. I mean, I am always knocking stuff over with my fingers. I mean, I'll be in the kitchen, I'm knocking glasses over. It's hard. It's hard to be big. I know you little guys are like laughing, like, oh, it's tough for me. But I mean, my wife's always.
I feel so bad for you. This is.
I know you should. My wife's always asking.
Let's start a GoFundMe.
Yeah, you should. I like it. But try getting in the shower, and the shower head washes your chest. You gotta hunker down.
Man, I gotta get on a ladder to get that thing.
Did you play any other sports or no?
Football and then basketball. Basketball wasn't really my passion so much in high school. I almost wasn't going to play, but I think the coach said, "Nah, why don't you play?" And so I played basketball in high school, and I ended up really enjoying it. But again, the clumsy, I rolled an ankle my sophomore year, rolled my ankle my junior year. Went on later on, I broke an ankle playing basketball. Basketball can be rough, especially for the big guys. Mm-hmm. So I don't play anymore, but through college, I played a lot of rec ball. But I was never a baseball. Baseball's just never been my thing. I mean, I don't mind watching a little bit. It's just a little too slow paced for me. Golf, tennis. My grandpa was a tennis coach, and he tried to get me to play tennis, and never was into it. So football, basketball, those are my sports.
What was your first car? a truck.
Or are you asking me to fish for my secret question to get into my credit card account?
No.
That's a good question.
My first car is a truck. It was a Nissan pickup. It was just a 2-wheel drive. And I drove it like it was a 6-wheel drive. I've gotten that. I had that thing stuck so many times out in the middle of nowhere, with little, I shouldn't have had it where I had it, but it was a little Nissan pickup, and I drove the hell out of it for those couple of years.
Like a little 4 or 6 cylinder or something.
A little 4-cylinder, 4-cylinder 5-speed.
Have you been to my place or no?
I haven't been there. I know where it's at because
Okay.
the house next to you was a client of mine, so I did some work over there. But I have not been to.
Yeah, my landlord's got like an old Nissan extended cab. It's his plow truck. I don't know what that thing is. I don't know.
But it's probably something like similar to what you have.
It is a 5-speed.
Yeah, and it's funny that you call it extended cab because it is.
Yeah,
like the extended cab is like that big.
Yeah,
it's
little
like you could
seat.
Put your backpack back there.
That's what this was.
Yeah.
It was barely. I mean, it had seat belts and had a little seat, but you'd have to sit sideways.
Yeah, right.
There's no way that you could, but it was a great truck.
Yeah, you'd sit with your feet like this.
Yeah, and mine would be up.
Up
in my ears.
Right. Yeah, you'd be like.
Yeah. You guys would be laying out.
Oh, I'd take. I'd probably take a
bunk bed for the
I'd take a nap
you
back
guys
there
in the back of there.
We probably wouldn't even knock anything over back there.
Bunk bed hammocks.
We had a Ford Ranger on the farm that had those seats. You face each other in the back seat and they fold down. Like they were like that big.
Yeah,
and they just you literally.
Where was this?
On our farm. It was just a farm truck, an old Ford Ranger, but the 2 back seats they fold and you'd face each other, like sitting across from each other, and they're like tiny little seats with just a belt strap.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
Yeah, the evolution of vehicles is from the 80s. I mean, even back into the 70s up to now. I mean, it was funny, and we're going off on all of these tangents, but you guys are steering the ship. So if we get off course,
we're gonna crash.
I went to the car wash. I was washing one of the cars here. I think it was yesterday or the day before. There's a regular cab truck or a regular cab long bed truck. And it was interesting just at the time because it was red and it was a more modern, I don't know. And I just thought to myself, I was like, how often do you see a regular cab full size long bed truck anymore? And it started making me realize it's like, that's like special order stuff anymore. It's so hard to find because everything's crew cab or extra cab. But so going back to, my squirrel brain here is just how far we've come and, how culture and society has changed and the evolution of science and technology with even just vehicles and trucks in particular.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you can get any manual anymore. I know Dodge, I thought, was the last one, at least for full-size pickups that did manual.
Yeah, you're right. I think Dodge was the last one for the full size, but I know Toyota, the Tacomas, at least up until they just changed over the Tacos. I think you can still get a manual in the new Tacos.
It's like $10,000 more or something
like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know though. I mean, with the way that some of these new transmissions are anymore, I mean, the 100,000 mile CVT transmissions, and then you got to go get them rebuilt. You might be better off to drop the $10,000 to get the manual, just so you're replacing the clutch instead of replacing the transmission.
It's interesting because like in other countries, manual is still like the preferred option. Like if you go to Central America, South America, you can't find an automatic.
Yep.
Right. Every car is like a manual, even the new ones. So you can buy they have different versions, but like it's basically like a Hilux, right?
Right.
Like in Central America, I've never seen a automatic one.
Yep. No, so I spent some time in the Middle East, and you're the same. You're exactly right. I think Middle East, diesels, you see a lot more diesels around the world, and you see the manuals. But we have, so between my wife, my daughter, and I, we have 6 vehicles. 2 of them are manuals, and I won't get rid of them. I mean, one of them I would get rid of. I need to get rid of it. But the other one, I bought it specifically because it's a manual. It's a unicorn.
It'd be cool, and I don't know what it would cost. Maybe it would cost more. And I guess maybe it would be worth it. But to go, if like Chevrolet or Ford or whoever it was would make almost like a technology delete version, right? So like no power windows, almost like all mechanical buttons, none of the bells and whistles, and just make some kind of bare bones. That'd be kind of cool, I think, because, all these cars nowadays, they've gotten so expensive, but also so complicated with all the technology on them. I think there would be a couple of pieces of technology you still want to have, like a backup camera is awesome, Bluetooth is awesome. But anyway, I wouldn't want to get rid of all of them, but I don't know, just for like a longevity, right? Like you buy something that's going to last forever because there's nothing to break on it, so to speak.
No, I'm with you. I'm kind of I'm a big believer. The more complicated it is, the more complicated it is. And I mean, even you look at some, and as with working with Tim, is I'm not a Chevy person, but
What's wrong with you?
Where do we start? We're going to have to call me back in for a second podcast to go down that rabbit hole. I'm not a Chevy guy.
You're not a Ford guy either.
I'm not a Ford guy either.
You're a Toyota guy.
I'm a Toyota guy.
Yeah,
and I'm a Dodge diesel guy. I'm not necessarily Dodge, but with working for Tim I kind of try to stay up on the Chevys, the Suburbans, and make sure I'm educated on knowing certain things. But when you look at some of the Suburbans, especially more modern, is a lot of the issues with the Suburbans. It's all electronic.
That's right.
I mean, it's with a lot of vehicles as a whole. I mean, transmissions, it seems like transmissions are a weak spot now. Emissions, which you could go down a rabbit hole with that, and the electronics. And so I'm with you is part of the reason why, I mean, I have a 99 4Runner. I have an 05 Dodge Ram. And then I have an 02 Land Cruiser, which the Land Cruiser is a pain because it's almost too much technology. But looking back, is I think some of the finest, most reliable vehicles ever made, my opinion, was about 94, 95 to 07. And especially on the low end of that, it's because it didn't have a lot of the electronic stuff. I mean, you could roll them off of a cliff, and start them up and take off. And, you start changing the emissions
but they were a lot more mechanical.
They were. And
it's like literally less parts.
And I think it's just a more durable. So I'm with you as if you could go back more to the simplicity of not having the power windows, not having all of this crazy electronic stuff that you really don't need. I don't want a car to drive itself. I like to drive, and all of the gears. And sometimes when someone pushes the wrong button, and I'm trying to change lanes, and the car's jerking me back into a lane, and it's like, what's going on here? To me, that's more dangerous. Not only that, I don't want all of that stuff. So I'm with you, is if they can kind of get back to a bare basics of 5-speed, 6 speeds are kind of a pain in the butt, but a 5-speed manual, reach over and roll the window up manually and unroll it, and all that other good stuff. Some
guys I grew up with said they just keep a pipe. You could reach the pipe over and put it on the on the crank.
Yeah.
That's good. But when you're 6'3", when you got gorilla
you
arms,
you just do it.
I got the pipes right there.
I'd have to pull over and slide over to the middle seat to get over there. Well, and it was funny because I have an old pickup, and I brought it out the other day for the first time, and I did that exact thing. I rolled down the window, I adjusted the mirror, just pushed it out, and then rolled the window back up, But now, new cars, you would have, been over here messing with the electric motor or whatever,
right.
And so, my electric motor doesn't go out because I don't have one.
Right. No, and if something does happen, you're downtown and someone smacks your mirror driving by, and it's not as expensive to get it replaced. It's just, no, and even your FJ. You're looking at your FJ. Toyota did a pretty good job with the FJs. They're pretty bare bones. They're pretty stripped down, and I think that's why it's a great platform for an overland. Is especially for something like that, is your city drivers and what have you. You're fancy. Some people want all the bells and whistles because it's cool. But when you're out and you're hunting, or you're, if you don't want all the bells and whistles, you want something that's just reliable, and it's not going to break down. Just all of this extra stuff. The turbo's a fragile thing, but those FJs, that's a good platform because Toyota did a good thing with those. They're very, very basic. And they still have their electronics on them, but it's a pretty basic rig.
Yeah. We went down a car rabbit hole there. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I was going to say two things, because that new van has a big display screen to control all the climate, and it drives me crazy because you're really fucking with it when you're trying to change the setting, and you're trying to watch the road.
Yep.
So you almost have to stop. Like this is a dial that slides up on the touch screen for the fan speed, and this one's for the temperature, and then you got to toggle here to get the defroster or the back on. The only thing it does have up here, which is completely manual, is for the cabin air. It's like that's simple, but anything for yourself, and it's, you almost got to get it where you want it before you leave. Same thing. Like I didn't even know that there was heated seats in the thing, but it's also on that same thing.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass. And
I agree. Just the more complicated things are, the more complicated they are. And I think it comes to a point, it's like, when's too much? When's it too much? It's a car. It's not my recliner so I can sit back and watch.
I guess what I think about is just like the economics of it, right? Like, it's having a nice, like brand new car with all these bells and whistles is nice. It is. And you get into a newer vehicle and you're like, man, this is pretty sweet. And so I guess it shouldn't, like, it's important to acknowledge that. I guess what I think about is kind of the cost of everything. And I say cost, like it could be a mental cost, but it also could be like a financial cost, right? Like you're going to own this vehicle. It's already crazy expensive, right? If you buy a brand new vehicle. And then just like the cost of like, well, I got to repair this and I got to repair that versus I've owned this old truck. It's a 1967 pickup truck. I've owned that truck for 19 years. I literally have just put a battery in it. I put a new motor in it out of pure choice a few years back, but I haven't even replaced the alternator.
What kind of truck is it?
It's a 67 Chevy C10.
It's a lowrider.
It's so okay. You guys want to hear something funny? First day I took it out was last week when it was like sunny or whatnot. And I just drove it. I drove it to Home Depot and I'm on my way to Home Depot and I'm like sitting at a stoplight, light goes green. I take off and another car kind of pulls up to like the same intersection as I'm taking off. And he says like something out the window. I couldn't really hear it. And my window was down. And I was like, wait, did he just say that? And I just started laughing so hard because he said, go back to Mexico. And I'm thinking to myself, first I was like, fuck that guy. And then I was thinking to myself, well, he's kind of right. I am from Los Angeles, which is basically Mexico. Like, and I was like, this it like,
you're
like
a lowrider.
I'm driving like a lowered pickup truck, which is also like, it's a very like Southern California or, kind of a hot rod thing. And I think the whole Southern California car culture has actually a lot of influence from Mexican culture.
Sure.
And so anyway, I was thinking to myself, like, actually, he's kind of right. And I'm like, I just started laughing so hard, And the funny thing is he was driving like a 91 fucking Thunderbird. And I'm like, you're Mexican, dude. And maybe he was.
Nah, it's funny. There's some good stuff out there. My grandma had a 62 Impala and I after she passed away, my uncle had it and then I took it off his hands. I had it here in Montana for a little while, but as I was getting it here, I trailered it here and then I would take it as a daily driver once in a while. But in construction, when I was doing, some of the guys I'd work with.
What was it?
It was a 62 Chevy Impala 2-door.
Okay, cool. Fuck yeah. Dude, that's a cool car.
It was great. Beautiful car. Beautiful car.
Wow.
But I had it out a few times where some of the guys.
Look up a 62 Impala. They're fucking sick. The windshield on that thing?
62, 63 are kind of your two hit years, which were kind of the two, I would say. The 59, the 62, the 63, I think they're kind of your apex of the Impala. Yeah. But
the 62 has such a cool windshield.
Okay, yes. I was going to say, I knew an Impala, but like a 2000.
Yeah, no, so I had that here in Montana for a little while, but I would drive it once in a while. But some of the Masons, like the guys I'd work with, if they saw it, they were eyeballing, but they were Mexicans. And I would joke with them because, just because I knew them well, I say, don't you guys be eyeballing my car here. It's gonna,
so like that one?
Yeah, except for instead of it being red, it was more of an ivory color.
So it's interesting. Did they switch in from halfway through 62?
No, not that I know.
Okay, so Tim, this is a different one than you were looking at.
So 60.
So this is.
So 62 kind of had a little bit bigger tail fins, and then 63 was a little more boxy, square in the back.
That's cool.
That's a fucking cool car, man.
It's beautiful. I'd take it. So when I brought it here, it needed a little bit of work, and I had a little bit of work done on it. But it was my Sunday driver. It had no seat belts, and at the time, so we're going to go off on another tangent. Anyway, anyways, we didn't drive it.
What happened to the car?
I ended up, I
man.
got tired of moving it, and I got tired of garaging it, and I got tired of space.
It became a burden.
And I think sometimes sentimental value is you have to cap it. You can't let sentimental value bankrupt you. And not that the car bankrupted me, but it was a pain, and it was parked, and and sometimes cars need to be driven. I don't care what car it is, it needs to be driven. Otherwise you're going to get a gopher or a mouse or something's going to be up in the chewing the hood insulation or wires or something. So you got to drive that. And so I ended up, my cousin wanted it. And my thing was I'd like to keep it in the family. And so I just had an agreement with my cousin, and she has it. It's in Colorado now, as far as I know.
You want to sell it? Does she want to sell it?
I don't know. I could look into it, but it was
like
just one
I
of
need
those.
more shit. I don't need any more stuff.
But it's great. It was a great car. You'd go. Nobody would say, go back to Mexico. No, go back to North California. They would, give you the thumbs up.
Yeah.
And it was cool. But my grandparents, my grandma had the 62. My grandpa had a 74 C20 pickup that he put a camper on. They'd go down to the Salton Sea in the wintertime. And then,
so was that like a 1 ton?
It was a 3/4 ton.
Okay.
And then he also had a 57 Chevy pickup, my grandpa did. And when he passed away, my dad has it. And now my brother has it. It didn't have the wraparound window in the back, but it's kind of
yeah, they're really cool.
It's a great truck. And my grandpa had this ugly aluminum kind of big camper shell on the back, but it's since has been off. My dad had it redone, but my brother has it now. And
cool.
It's awesome. They'll do car shows with it. So yeah, cars have always been, I like cars.
Yeah.
They're fun, but they can be a pain. They can be, and how many cars do you need? The more the merrier, but
one. Yeah, we did get it off on a tangent though. So what was, you went to the Army. Where'd you tell us some of that story?
All right. So, usually I have a little backstory. Sorry. So I graduated from Weed, got my associates, and then I came to Montana, kind of as a gap year. And I was going to go to school in Oregon. But
how old were you when you moved here?
20.
Okay.
So I moved here, and then I liked it so much that I told Oregon, I said, I'm not going to come to school there. And I gained my residence here, went to MSU. I was in my last semester at MSU. I went for history, government, and education. So I was doing my student teaching at the high school in 2000. And when you do your student teaching, they don't want you working. And so that's, 4 months, whatever, of no income as a student teacher. And so I was
Why is that?
That's weird.
Want you to suffer?
Well, they wanted you to be fully on board. They wanted you to put everything into your student teaching opportunity. And so I was like, how am I going to do this? I need some income because through college, I worked construction, and, you're used to having just decent money. And so, to go completely cold. So I started thinking, I was like, well, I'm going to maybe take out a student loan. It's the only student loan I ever took out. Yeah. Cause my dad helped me a lot with school. And then, thought about joining, see if the Guard would pick up the student loan if I enlisted. So, I ended up doing a little research. And so I got the student loan, but I hadn't been paid yet. I signed a promissory notice, but I didn't have a disbursement date. And so I went and talked to the recruiter and just was trying to line it up. And he said, well, it's based on your promissory notice date. He said, why don't you just enlist now? And I was like, okay. So August of 2000, I enlisted. And then come to find out it wasn't based on the promissory notice date. It was based on the disbursement. So I fought the Guard for 5 years to pay my student loan that I'm going to flat up say the recruiter didn't know what he was doing. He lied. And it pissed me off. But I joined the Guard. And so I did drills through student teaching as a medic, because at the time I was a volunteer firefighter for was Belgrade Fire at the time. And I'd already been an EMT with them, EMT firefighter. So I went in as a medic, and I drilled August to the end of my student teaching into January. And it was actually in Livingston, even though it was out of Bozeman. And then when I graduated from college, I immediately shipped to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. did my basic training there. And then I shipped to Fort Sam Houston in Texas. Because I was already an EMT, they accelerated me through the medical program through there. So I jumped ahead like 6 or 8 weeks, finished up my AIT there, and then came back and was, true certified guardsman.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then what'd you do? Like you went straight into contracting when you got here?
So when I was in high school, I worked at a hardware store. Starting at 14, I worked through high school, and then those 2 years of junior college, worked at the local hardware store. Came to Montana, worked on a ranch for a little while, and then I worked at Murdoch. It's not Murdoch. It's Murdoch's now, but it was Ranch and Home Big R. But it's the same company. Worked for those guys for a little while, and then one of the gals I worked with, her husband was interested in hiring me, so I worked for Edsel Construction at the time. Picked me up. And, like doubled my pay and whatever. So I started to get in just as a laborer. I had no idea what I was, I showed up with my Walmart belt bag and a fiberglass hammer, and everybody's laughing at me. We're doing concrete work, and they just shook their head, So I worked for Edsel Construction. We helped build the post or the hospital here. Started there. We did a lot of wings on the hospital. We built the post office over off of Baxter.
Are they still around?
No, they went bankrupt. But I worked for them for quite a while. And then I ended up going residential for a guy. And then I was also in there. I was a firefighter. That was my passion. I loved firefighting. And through Belgrade Fire, we do, wildland fire. And then I hired on with a private contract, Bridger Fire. And I worked for those guys.
You did that like on the side?
I did that the Belgrade I did like all year round. So we'd get calls, and then we'd do training. Monday nights was training. And depending on if you were fire and medical officer, and then the association. So almost every Monday night was training. And then throughout the week, you had a pager, and you'd get called and you have to go respond to,
And that was volunteer? Or that was paid?
That was volunteer. Oh. Yep. So I was with those guys for 5 or 6 years, and then also doing military, doing school, doing all of that stuff. And then September 11th happened. And when September 11th happened, it completely changed the function of how the Guard operated, because it just did. So following September 11th, I was asked if I wanted to do airport security, here at Gallatin Field. And so I was basically put on active duty, but active duty state. So we were trained, to do, hand-to-hand combat, how to, watch people, and we all kinds of stuff. We qualify on pistols. Montana didn't want, the governor at the time, they didn't want to feel like we were a banana republic. So whereas a lot of other states would arm their guardsmen with M4s, M16s, as we were armed with M9s, because we wanted a very mellow vibe here. And so we were trained with the M9s, the Beretta 9mm.
Can you pause there? Teach me something. So what do you mean by a banana republic? I've heard this term before, and I think I know, but what do you mean in that context?
Well, have you ever traveled to Mexico, Central America, South America? So a lot of times, I don't know, for me, when I've gone, you get off the plane, and you'll have,
and there's armed guards.
Yeah. Whereas you travel in the United States,
that doesn't happen.
You just don't see, other than maybe a police officer who has a pistol. And I don't want to assume anything, but when I travel stateside, is I'm not threatened by a police officer having a pistol. I don't want to say threatened, but I'm not.
It's not up front in your face.
It's not in my face. Whereas when you travel elsewhere, whether it was in the Middle East, people are running around with automatic weapons, or not running around, but they're guarding.
It's commonplace to see them, like it's really all over the place. So
here stateside is we don't typically have that.
I got you.
And so when I say a banana republic, is what I'm trying to say is like just that intimidation factor, whether it's intentional or unintentional, however you want to interpret it.
Yeah.
When you go to a country outside the U.S. that has that presentation of force.
Yeah.
And so here in Montana at the time, the governor did not want that vibe.
I got it.
And so we stayed with the M4s, the pistols.
That's weird. Oh, maybe it was like
or is it a fluorescent bulb or LED? It might have had something to do with.
That's so weird. It just started.
It's like the disco ball. Maybe that was, where did Tim get the light?
I don't know. Okay, now I know what you mean. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, no, that's, and maybe I mean, it might not have been the best.
No, I know what you mean now. Basically, what you're saying is, locally they didn't want to show the presentation of force,
Exactly.
whether it existed or not is kind of
Right.
irrelevant. But it was like it wasn't in front of your face.
Right. We more so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have people here. We're here to protect you, but we're not here to intimidate you. We're here.
Yeah.
We're watching. We're here. We're gonna ensure safeties.
Yeah.
Everybody's safe, but it's. And I think, I don't know, you could open that up and it's like, I mean, if you're in a crowded airport and if something were to go down, do you want people with automatic weapons shooting in an airport with lots of people, or do you want people who have a little more control with a pistol? Not to say, I mean, not to go down too much of a rabbit hole, but it's also a safety factor and a realism factor. Truly, I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, we could. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. I mean,
but I get what you're saying.
So anyways, that's where we were at the time. So we trained with Berettas, 9mm, and then we did security and we'd patrol the airport. We would patrol the outside of the airport and did that for a while. And then as things kind of calmed down, they kind of halved it, the active side of that, and I was on the low end of that, so I got bumped and did other stuff. I got out of the active side at that point. I was still a traditional guardsman, the month-to-month thing. And there was other opportunities. The guard just kept me busy with different trainings and whatever. But so that's kind of where that was at.
Cool. You enjoy it?
Parts of it, yes. Especially being younger. I mean, I was old when I got in. I was already a college graduate. When I went to basic, I was one of the oldest guys there.
Yeah.
And I hated that because it's a bunch of these
17, 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah. And they just, screwing around all the time. It's like, gosh. But the Guard as a whole, I mean, it offered some great opportunities. I met some great guys. I mean, I've flown in helicopters. I've been in, the military as a whole. I've been all over the world with the Air Guard, or with the Army Guard, the Montana Army Guard. I mean, we did OPFOR. I was able to do some OPFOR, like oppositional force stuff down in Wyoming. It was awesome. I'm one of those guys. I can not take a shower for a week and I can go sleep in a sleeping bag and run around and play. I've been playing Army since I was a kid. And so, to get paid to do that for a week or 2 weeks, I love it. I mean, back then, more so. I don't know if I could handle it now. I'd be like, but I loved that aspect and the camaraderie, and the things that I was able to see. It opens up, we were eventually activated federal, deployed to the Middle East, and just the process of getting there and the training and being away from family. Not so much. I mean, I was away from home for 21 months, 18 months. I mean, from training to being in the Middle East for a year to getting back home.
Where'd you go?
So the first trip flew into Kuwait, was there for a little bit, and then drove from Kuwait to Camp Liberty.
What year would this have been?
This would have been 2004. We were activated, I think, in April of 2004. Did a bunch of training. We left Montana in the end of June. There's all of that was training, whether it was medical training for other people's training or being trained up medically. And then we were in Texas from basically end of June, beginning of July, Texas, Fort Bliss, and then Donna Ana, which was El Paso. And then southern or in New Mexico, we'd have been in parts of New Mexico, kind of in that whole area. It's all right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we went to Fort Polk in Louisiana and did some training there. And then we were in Alexandria, Louisiana for a little while. They call it the chicken coops. We were just on standby. We were able to come home for like 5 days or a week or something in there and leave. And then we went back to Louisiana. And as soon as everybody got back, jumped on planes. I remember flying up the East Coast. You could see New York City and I just remembered the irony of that, of why we're headed to the East Coast, looking at New York. It was to me, it's kind of surreal. And then we flew to Kuwait, there for a couple of weeks, drove from Kuwait like I said, up to Baghdad, just north of Baghdad, Camp Liberty. From there, we kind of got all split up. And then I went to Fob Gabe.
Where's that?
Fob Gabe is outside of Bakuba. And so when Fallujah was
those
going
are
on,
two areas I've never.
it's not
places
too,
I've never heard
it's
of.
not too far from Baghdad. I mean,
Okay.
by Montana standards, it's not too far. But Bakuba is kind of, or Bakuba. I mean, we call it either one. But after Fallujah went down, so I was in Kuwait when Fallujah went down, and we heard lots of reports. And then after Fallujah happened,
What happened in Fallujah?
all hell kind of broke loose. Like there was a major insurrection there, and the military went in to kind of, mostly the Marines, I think, got the blunt of it, but some major fighting. I would say some of the most major fighting of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And I don't have my phone here. I wasn't part of it, but it just shut it down. And then in the aftermath of that, Fallujah was kind of cleared out. A lot of those people went to Bakuba, the insurgency, and so we happened to be in Bakuba when in the aftermath of that. So we spent the first elections, democratic elections post Saddam, in Bakuba. And so you have this guard unit from Montana. We were stationed with an artillery unit. I can't remember who they were, but we're part of the 1st Infantry. And when we were there, we had Bradleys, because we're armored cav, but basically we're mechanized infantry, and we'd run around in these Bradleys. And
what's a Bradley?
That's an armored fighting vehicle. It's like a mini tank.
Okay,
is basically what it was. But it has personnel carrier in the back, small gun on the top. It has a weapon system. Basically, you can get like a squad size unit in every Bradley. You can get about 8 or 10 people in the back of it. And it's armored. It has a drop down ramp. So we did the first elections in Bakuba, and I mean, it kind of, for us, it was a wake up call. It's like, this shit's real. Like, we were getting shot at, we were getting mortared, we were getting rocketed, go out and you're trying to collect ballot boxes and they're mortaring you. And it's like, we'd drive around, and I remember I was sitting in the back of the Bradley looking out the bubble hole, and we'd go around all day kind of patrolling. Sometimes we'd turn left, sometimes we'd turn right. Well, we turned left one time, and as we turned left, I watched a mortar hit out the bubble of the Bradley. Had we turned right, it would have hit us. And I had my headset on. And I was calling up to the BC, the Bradley commander. I said, "We're getting mortar," and he's like, "No shit! It just, I could feel it on my neck." So it's like, it's real. This shit's real, And so we did that. We had some different guys. We had different. Everybody was everywhere for that day. It was like 36 hours of no sleep. Running around, just chaos through the first elections. And everybody had a different story. But after that, within the next couple of days, we were loaded up.
Everybody had a different story.
Everybody. So you have your different squads, your different platoons, and everybody's going in different directions.
Okay. So they had their own chaos, like wherever they were those 36 hours.
Yep. So just ours, we had a group of our Bradleys, our platoon, 2nd platoon is who I was stationed with at that time. We were together. But I mean, even within your Bradleys, everybody would have a different story. If you weren't in the back Bradley, you probably didn't see the mortar hit. You didn't even know you were getting mortared. Versus the guys in the front were getting machine gunned, and the guys in the back didn't know they were getting machine gunned or taking fire, because, you're inside, you have headsets on, and you can't see. I mean, the drivers could see, the TC might be able to see, but it's just, an urban warfare it's different.
Who was firing at you?
You'd say insurgency, but you would, local Iraqis who didn't want Americans being there.
Okay.
That's
because Saddam had already been taken out of power, right? So these were local people that were like, "Hey, get the hell out of here."
Yeah. I couldn't tell you who or what the political philosophy was. I mean,
interesting.
We could go down another rabbit hole if someone invaded Montana or the United States.
Right.
I mean, who's going to be
right,
fighting them?
It's
a hodgepodge. And so I'd say
that's really interesting.
People who did not want us there were trying to get rid of us.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because you're not like fighting a government, and you're not fighting a country.
No, more than anything, we weren't fighting. It wasn't as far as my impression at the time is what I would say. And even looking back now, we weren't fighting. We were.
You're trying not to get killed.
Well, I mean, ultimately, yes. But what we were doing was we were trying to promote a safe democratic election. We were trying to oversee and provide a force, a presence for the non-combatants to go vote and to go try to create a self-elected government in the post-Saddam era.
I got you.
That's ultimately what the mission was for us at that point in time.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, we had real weapons, we had loaded guns, we had real bullets, but it was not as an aggressive force. It was more as a defensive.
I got you. Yep. Wow. What a fucking experience, man.
That was, I mean, I'm sure, you talk to anybody, everybody else's experience. Some people, I mean, crazy stories. And I mean, I don't have any super crazy stories where, you're in major gunfights with people and, stuff blown up around you. I mean, but you're in a foreign country like that, is you'll see stuff over a period of a year, IEDs, been in 2 convoys that were IED'd. I was never IED'd personally. Chinese rockets at night or at your fob, people diving into bunkers and you're trying to order food at one of the outside things in your secure area and rockets are going off. And,
what do you mean by Chinese rockets?
Well, that's just what they were. The Chinese, they were like, they'd shoot rockets into the fob and try to take out the chow hall, or they try to take out tents or whatever. You'd have mortars, rockets.
Now, were these like nicknamed Chinese rockets?
Yeah,
that's okay.
what we Chinese rockets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. This is a nickname of the Chinese rockets. It wasn't from the Chinese government.
No, well, I don't know where they came from.
Gotcha.
That's what we call them.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I was like, I didn't know the Chinese were out there.
No.
Right.
I'm not trying to say anything like that.
I got you.
It's just what we call them. So, yeah.
Kyle, you want to give me that cup of coffee when you guys like?
No, man. We could take a break if you need one. I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Yeah, whatever.
What was it like coming? I mean, after that all settled down and you just came back here to Montana, was that a weird transition, or was it?
It was because, it's interesting because when you look at like the history of warfare in a lot of ways, being a history guy, I've done a lot of thought and research on that. Is, even World War I, World War II, you're in a halfway around the world, you're in a combat zone, and then the demobilization process of getting home. It's a process. It takes a little while. You start to, you start to unwind a little bit. You turn your stuff in, you jump on a boat, and it takes, a month to get home. And there's a little bit of a process there, I think, to be able to process with people and to slowly transition. Whereas, starting in like Vietnam, you could be home in 24 hours from being in a combat zone, being shot at, to being home. I mean, even when we went on leave, there was no filter process other than maybe being shipped to Kuwait, wait for a plane in Kuwait to fly home. Yeah. But you could be off the field and home in 24 hours. And so I think the psyche of that switch is, we're not machines, and the human body can only handle so much. So that transition, I think, can really have an effect on people. When we actually came home to demob, like not home for leave, because you're allowed to come home for leave once in that 1 year period for like a week, whatever it was. We came into Lewis McChord in Washington, and so that's a little bit of a process. We were in barracks, and then you're doing your paperwork and trying to do that. So we were there for, I don't know, a week, 10 days. And then we were shipped home, flown home, whatever else. But when I got home at the time, so I was married, but not, it's my first wife. She picked me up at the airport and I jumped in the car. And I remember coming home from the airport, turned off Valley Center there, the underpass, and I was coming down Valley Center. And I was driving down the middle of the road, because that's how when we were in Iraq, we drove. You controlled the road. Nobody was allowed to get, everybody was supposed to get off. And I'm driving down the middle of the road, and there's like cars. And I wasn't thinking cars were.
Your brain was just there.
Cars were swerving. And I just remember her, she was in the corner. It's a great ringtone.
Your phone makes like little videos, like of the pictures.
Oh, yeah.
It just randomly started. Sorry.
Anyway, you were driving down the middle of the road.
I was driving down the middle of the road, and I mean, the cars were like, what the hell's going on? And my wife, I just remember looking at her, and her eyes were this big. And she said, pull over. what? It's like, she said, you're done. You're not driving home anymore. And so it took me a little while. And
what year do you remember what year that would have been?
So we went to Iraq, like boots on the ground in Iraq would have been like early December, mid-December 04.
Uh-huh.
And then we came home like November. I think we were Lewis McCord, late November. I think Thanksgiving. I remember Thanksgiving in Washington, at McCord. And so I would say I was home by December 1st of 05.
Okay.
Can you back up this story about your wife telling you?
I was asking him what it was like getting back here.
Okay.
And he was saying he's basically like, you guys would drive down the middle of the road and own the road there, and he just started doing that when he got back here.
Oh, so
he was going down the middle of Valley Center. Was it? It was blacktop then, right?
Oh yeah.
And it was just 2-lane like it is now.
Yep.
So okay. So
I mean, that part hasn't changed very much.
So you were so used to just like driving down a pathway, and you drive in the middle. So then when you got back, you were like, I fucking own this road.
No, not just driving down the pathway. Like anywhere, like if you were in a convoy over there, your convoy is, and every platoon would do things a little differently. So I was part of headquarters mostly. So I would be with the company commander, and we were a little more graceful when we did things. But with our medics is you had like a twofold role. And so I was a headquarters medic. I'd go out with the commander when he did a patrol, or we'd go see the mayor of the town or whatever. But then I was the wing medic for 2nd platoon. So I would complement the main medic of 2nd platoon. So when he was burned out or tired, he needed a break, is I would go out on patrols with him. So sometimes I'd go out with the regular, we were cab, but I call them infantry. We do our patrols, and they're a little more Wild West. You know, they were a little crazier. Some crazy stuff would go down. But when you'd go down somewhere, you'd go on a patrol, or you'd be going somewhere, you would have like a 3 to 5 Humvee convoy, and you'd take off down the middle of the road. And by then the locals, they would get out of the way, and if they didn't, they'd either get bumped off the road or they'd get run over or whatever. There was just not a lot of grace.
Yeah.
When we were there. I mean, we had even some guys with the lead Humvee would have a shotgun. The guy would be up and if someone didn't move, he would shoot the shotgun in front of the vehicle to get him off the road, to get him out of there. So that was our protocol and you drive fast because you didn't want to go slow because you're kind of a target. So just coming home coming home from the airport.
That's fucking
not,
so you're like, everybody get the hell out of my way. I got it. All right. So your wife.
It took a little while. I mean, the transition wasn't. It took a little while when your new norm, when you're in a situation like that, you live somewhere else in a combat zone or anywhere. The new normal changes. Like there's a little bit of I can't believe this is happening factor early on, and we kind of dove in early on. And then that becomes the normal, the psychology of that, and I think your adrenal glands, everything is on heightened awareness because you are constantly, for a year, you're looking, there's a hole in the road. There's a dead cat on the side of the road. Those are all signs of a possible IED. This is a trap area or whatever it is. We're in a funnel, and we got to be careful. And I think after a while it's like, you guys ever work so much and then you take a break and you're sick? And I think that there's something to be said. Is like your adrenal glands is just you're exhausted and your body shuts down. And I think that that's what happens a lot to people. And I think that's what it took a little while for me to find my new normal coming home.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
How long do you think that was till you were like? Was it a while of just like?
I don't know. I think it'd have been, if you'd asked my wife at the time, she probably would have told you it was a lot longer than what I thought it was. I tried to jump back in and get going with life and just move forward. For me, the military, and that's chapter 1 because there's chapter 2 with the air side of things. But for me, like some people, the military experience, it's like their life or the apex of their life or this big. For me, it's like a chapter. It's there. I'll talk about it, whatever, but it's not like I get too caught up into it. It's, I'm not collecting disability for PTSD or anything like that. I just, for me, it's like, it's what I did. It's in the past. it's there. I'll talk about it, but I'm gonna move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't play the veteran card a whole bunch, just because it was a chapter, and I move forward from it. So that's kind of how I felt about that.
Yeah, I think you got a pretty good perspective on it.
Yeah, you'll meet this guy Ed. He's going to be at the table when we go to that lunch. But he was like, I think he was Army for 25 years, and he was like just telling me some stories, and it's like that's like a large chunk of your life when you're 25 years.
Well, especially when you're active duty,
and
you do make a retirement out of it, and it a different, contrary to what anybody says, guard or active, which way you want to look into it is the guard is a very different experience than the active side. Even if you're activated on the guard side, in some ways, I think you're at a disadvantage because you're not properly prepared, and it's so fast, and your family's not prepared, and your family doesn't have the resources that the active duty side has. But I mean, on the longevity is, some of these guards guys, they deploy once or they deploy twice, and they'll make it sound like, oh my gosh, and some of these active duty guys, they've been deployed 3-4 times, the whole lifetime, like you said, it's a career of actual going overseas versus going once every 3 or 4 years. And I'm not at all trying to downplay the guard. I was a member of the guard, and there's some wonderful people, but it's a different monster.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different monster.
then you started contracting again when you got back from there.
So when I came back, I'd actually started my business, my contracting business. My wife helped me establish it. And then it got activated. It was kind of just on hold. And then when I came back, I kind of took off a little bit. I hooked up with a local company, and I acted as a subcontractor for him. And then it started to kind of flower into custom stuff. And it was a huge learning curve for me working with him. He was kind of my safety net, and he provided kind of the labor, but I was more of a foreman. And it worked out pretty good for a little while. I mean, I was locally here. I was up in Big Sky, and then he would subcontract for like Big Sky Build. I don't know what they're called anymore. We did a house up there. As far as framing wise, I'm a framer by trade. I'm a structural kind of guy. I'm not necessarily a finesse trim guy kind of thing, but I love structure and figuring out that stuff. So we were up there, and then eventually it just kind of took off and petered out on some different jobs. And then I had one big one. I was working south of town for an architect and his wife. His wife flagged me down. She saw my trailer, wanted a card. I went over and I remodeled their porch for him. And then from there, she said, "Hey, I got this neighbor. He wants to fix a barn." So I jumped the fence of the neighbor's yard, and I looked at this barn, and it was like, oh my God, guy wires holding this thing up, pigeons everywhere, pigeon shit everywhere. Like the wind would blow, and you could, this thing was
about to fall down.
It was just about ready to go. And so I think she gave him my number, and he called me, and he said, "Hey, Kraig, I'm so-and-so, and I got this barn." I said, I know where you're at. I said, "I've already looked at your barn." He said, "Yeah?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I jumped your fence and I looked at the barn." He's like, "Oh, well, cool." He's like, "Why don't you come look at it with me?" And so we went in.
As long as I don't have to stand in it, no problem.
So we went. I met him, and he's a great jovial guy, and his ideas of what he wanted to do with this barn. And he asked me. He said, "Can you do that?" And in my head, my young, dumb, early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, whatever I was like, I can do anything as long as you have the money and the time and whatever. And so we took this barn, and this is the 1915 barn, the Johnson family homestead barn off of Johnson Road. And I mean, it was an evolution. I mean, it was a long process because there was no this is what I want from day one. It was, well, let's do this. And you would do that and be like, oh, okay, well, let's do this. And then he realized what we were capable of doing. The next thing I know is, it was it was like a barrel roof, like a Dutch barn. And he's like, "Well, can you do 2 Dutch barrels perpendicular to the main barrel?" And I was like, son of a gun, that's not easy. I was like, I can do it. So next thing I know is we do this Johnson family barn, and he turns it into kind of this wedding venue. He lived in it for a little while I remodeled his house and rebuilt his house. He became a great client, long story short. And that was kind of the beginning where I took off on Western, barn renovations, and kind of was my start. And actually that client, that friend, I had lunch with him. That's who I had lunch with yesterday. So he ended up, became an ordained minister. He married my wife now and I in that barn. So how cool is that? We had our wedding in the barn that I remodeled, and
that's pretty badass.
He performed it. So, and then from there, I mean, the Enders barn, the Enders family, it was an old pig farm off of Enders Road. We fixed that, not quite to that extent. I've done a ranch down on the South Fork of the Shoshone. Your old next door neighbor, he was financial advisor for a company, and he hired me for that. We spent kind of 2 summers down there doing a ranch down there. That was kind of in the 2008, and then that market crashed. Things kind of took a turn. And then anyways, I've done a little bit of everything. Commercial, I helped build. I worked for Dick Anderson kind of in between there. I was a laborer, carpenter for him for a little while. We did the North 7th Bridge. And then from there, they made me a superintendent, bumped me up to Big Sky. I was up in Big Sky for a year, and it just wasn't not my that's not my kind of thing. And so anyways, this kind of my most recent one. I had a big ranch out in Harrison. I was hired to kind of do a remodel on a house, and it turned into being a remodel on the ranch. It was like the never ending 4-year project. And after a while, I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And so I got burned out on that, and I call it my sabbatical, and just kind of did some stuff around the house. I got into reading and Audible, and kind of went down this rabbit hole with a bunch of books over the last couple of years. And I got bored with that, and kind of, the construction side, I just got burned out with. So I started doing the whole, some side drive and helping people out. Stuff like that.
You're an interesting fucker, man.
He's like a historian too. Like some of the stuff you're just telling me about Bozeman's history, I'm like impressed with your knowledge of it, and your recall too.
It's I think when you're proud of something, and you feel a part of it and you're proud of it, you want to share it. And especially I think for tourism, try to share with people, because I think some people just come here. I don't know. I don't want them to. I don't know. I think of like Vegas, right? A lot of people, I would say a lot of respect for Vegas. It's like, we're going to go here, and there's going to be a weekend of debauchery. Yeah. We're going to throw up on the sidewalk, and we're going to, we're going to drink, and we're going to, go to the strip club and do whatever else. And then we're going to leave. And then Vegas is there.
It's disrespectful.
But Vegas has created that for itself in a way. Yeah. But also too, like if I'll go to Vegas just to people watch. Don't get me wrong. I like to drink beer, but I don't throw up on the sidewalk. I try to hit the trash can. But no, I like Vegas. My wife and I will go every once in a while, but I like to people watch. But if you go to some of those places and you interact with the bartenders, they're miserable. It's like, I hate my job. And I don't blame them, because everybody that comes in there is kind of an asshole, right? Mm-hmm. And so I try to, here in Montana, is to let people know we're Montanans, we're proud. Don't come here and just think that this is your playground. People live here. There's a history here, and embrace that history. And I think if you're going to live here, and I'm not a native Montanan, and there's a lot I don't know, but I think you should have an idea of what the area is about, not just right now, but it's how did we get to this moment in time, and to understand that. And so I try to share that with people, so that you're educating them on the respect of it. Is, hey, don't be throwing your beer cans in the river, and don't be whatever else. You like it, it's beautiful. Make sure you leave it that way when you're gone. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. To that, so just yesterday I heard the owner of the Armory Hotel speak. Corey Lawrence is his name, and he I'm sure you saw what it was like before they
was the Armory, and I've been in that building.
Yeah, and he went into the whole history of it and what it was, and why he was trying to make something that was paying tribute to this town. And I think he's like 4th generation here, he said. But I was very impressed with his knowledge of the history and his intention when he made it. And he said, when you're coming to Montana, like, we want this to be a really nice hotel, but we're not going to say yes sir, we're going to say howdy. He's like, this is Montana. And it's the same way I feel about Mountain Mule. I'm like, it's a private car service, but it's Montana. It's not.
Right. Well, there's definitely psychology. The rideshare limo service is, having done it both, Uber and Lyft, and then working for you, it's really interesting. I think I'm fascinated by the psychology of it all, and reading people and how do you interact with people and being respectful, but not to the point where it's fake. Number one. Number two is maintaining my uniqueness, my identity, my personality without, putting my white gloves on and my white suit and being something I'm not. And so not only that, but I try to, then I would lose what you were saying is like sharing the history is my aspect of that. And so I completely agree with you. Is I think that there's a uniqueness of Montana as there's respect there. Yeah. But it's going to be on a very informal level. It's very mellow. We're pretty mellow here, but it's not a disrespect. So
somebody said that to me, and it was like, people laugh at me, but I still say it. They're like, "Oh, it's like a white glove service," and I'm like, "Well, I'll call it a Kinko glove service."
I'd say it's a calloused hand service.
Yeah, And I thought like, Kinko glove is Montana, not white glove. It's
sure,
but it's I get what you're saying. But
anyway, I would say, I mean, hey, if you want the white glove service, this is as a business owner, it takes a little while. I don't know. I got probably 10, 15, 14 years on some of you guys, and it takes a little while. I'm a very different person pushing 50 than I was in my 30s. I'm to the point in life is like, hey, if that's what you want, that's not what I provide. This is what I provide. And this is the people we want to attract is the people that want this service. So if you want a white glove service, I mean, you can apply that to anywhere. Then, hey, go use these guys. And I don't mean to turn business away from myself or whomever, but it's like, I also, it's a two-way street, right? Every relationship is a two-way street. And so who wants a client who wants a service that you don't provide and you're bending over backwards trying to provide a service to them? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, a little bit of a tangent, but it was specific to your company, but you can apply that to anywhere in life is what's your niche? Yeah. What are you willing to do?
Well, anyway, we did get off on a tangent but you're like some of the history and the stuff you've told me about Bozeman. I'm just impressed with your two or three people said to me this weekend, because they said to me, you've got a great memory, because I remembered their name. And I was like, I don't ever get that. Like I feel like I wish I could remember more, but I just I got too much going on in my head with my business. But I'm impressed with your history recall and just your interest in it too.
I appreciate that. No, I think too, especially with some of your clients, and you have some awesome clients. And I mean, the ones that I just took, and I'm taking them back on Tuesday. Phenomenal. I mean, down to earth. And I mean, they're easy to remember. And I think that you want to, especially reoccurring clients, you want to make sure that you have that. And because they're providing, they could take, there's nothing you sell that can't be bought somewhere else. And so you got to give them a reason to buy what you're selling. And so treating them with respect and remembering their names. And I just love, especially certain people, like those two are just so down to earth, and I love their stories. And it's easy, but at the same time, it is hard because sometimes you cycle through people. I mean, you can have, up to whatever, 7, 8 people in a vehicle at a time. And you're doing that 4 or 5 times a day. And it's hard to remember faces and names. And then some people look the same, or, 2 people are from South Carolina, but you can't remember. So it is a little tough, but I try to make notes on the ones that matter to me. Not to say they don't all matter, but I'm saying the ones that you have that connection with and you want to treat them even, better than you would just a standard person, a standard client.
Even when I drive more, it'd get tricky because you don't make the same type of eye contact you usually make with someone when you have a conversation. So I'm trying to look in the mirror or look over, but I'm driving, and I'm like, you don't have the same sort of connection. Like I'll be like, oh, that was a great conversation. And then I'm like, man, but I don't have a face tightly associated to it because I was looking at the road the whole time. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. It is tricky, especially when it's a lot of.
Yeah, no, that's it's interesting because the mental picture, if you're, a mental picture taker instead of an audio person, you're right, is to remember a person's face. It can be tough if you're not sitting there, absorbing it the way that you would, looking at them face to face. It's a good perspective.
Yeah. Now I'm already blanking on his name. It's Laura and
Todd.
Todd. Yeah. Todd. Yeah. Todd's great.
Yeah. They're both great.
Yeah.
Great couple. Yeah. Very down to earth. I appreciate that. That's where I'm at, is I like, down to earth, real people. That's who I tend to connect with. And I kind of shut down a little more with I don't know. For me, anybody who wants to brag to me and tell me how awesome they are or whatever, I kind of just like, bloop.
Yeah, you definitely get all kinds in this business though, for sure.
What were you like 15 years ago?
I was hell on wheels. I was 15 years ago. I would have been 30. So you can
move this wherever you want.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
15 years ago. So I've been married twice. My first wife had 10 years on me. She had a son from a previous marriage, and I was pretty immature going into that. Anyways, she and we were together for 7 years or so, and then we split up, divorced. And in the aftermath, I kind of was crazy. Like, you go out. I mean, just like, I don't want to say freedom, because that would be kind of a disrespect to that. But it's just, I think when people go through a divorce, you get crazy and wild, and you go to Vegas and you throw up on the sidewalk.
Okay.
You get crazy and what have you. And so for a while there, a couple of years, three years, as I was kind of out of control, crazy as far as dating and, traveling and doing stuff plus working. And I think I just kind of hit a wall after doing that for a little while. I was like, number one, this is expensive. Number two, there's not much depth to it. And I realized I appreciate, if I'm going to have a conversation with somebody, it might as well be, I'm not a surface level, hey, the weather's wonderful today. It's like, hey, what do you think about, the social, whatever. And so there was like an emptiness there. And so at that point, then my wife now I had known her for a while. She was going through a divorce too, and we were friends, and then we became, a little more, but, it kind of helped. She helped mellow me out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite, and if you were to talk to her, I'm still a lab. I'm still a yellow lab, but I'm starting to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's funny when you said that you're not going to have a surface level conversation. I'm like, well, that's why me and Kyle were doing this, but it's also why you're here too. I mean, that's why you're doing the work you do, because you enjoy those trips, talking to those people. And all this is an extension of me doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think conversation, because I think, it's like social media and whatever is so surface level and it's fake. And even in it's a little different with an hour-long ride, but even like with a 15-minute ride or an hour-long ride, you can paint a picture of yourself. I'm Superman, and I'm awesome and whatever else. But I mean, the reality is, and I think there's a lot of fakeness in the world today. That's just my perspective. And I think it takes a little time to get to know people and to be real. And I don't know. I kind of hunger for good conversation. I appreciate getting into things. It's a little tough. I mean, some things aren't like here on the podcast. I mean, there's certain things that don't need to be shared on a podcast.
Sure.
They're a little too deep, and it's not the right place. And out of protection for myself or anybody else involved, it's like, you just don't want to go there. But it's good to have harder conversations and actually where people can listen and engage and talk and kind of, go down and mix it up and then come back out of, whatever rabbit hole it is, instead of just how wonderful everything is. Right. I appreciate that.
Well, you're making me think, because I was at that Montana Fest was 3 days long. It was 3 days. All these different business owners are talking, these politicians, and there's a lot of different business owners and people in town. And by last night, I was just exhausted. I'm like, I like the amount of social stimulation, but anyone that I met there that I'm like, man, I'd really like to get to know this guy, said, hey, like, give me your card, or here's my card. Let's go get a cup of coffee next week, or come do the podcast. Cause this is the way I prefer to communicate. Is, a much more intimate setting. But when you get in, like, when there's 400 people in a room and everyone's talking so loud, and you're like just exchanging pleasantries and, oh, what do you do? What's your business? And it's like, let's, get past that and find out who you are. And a little more than.
Well, there's something to be said. I can't remember where exactly I read it or what have you, but it's like, and part of it's an American thing. I think we're kind of, and I hate boxes, like putting anybody or any group into a box, because it's not fair. But I think that there is some truth. As Americans, I think we're caught up in work. What do you do for a living? Now, that's one of the first things you ask them. What do you do for a living, right? Yeah. And I think we're caught up in work and money and image, and especially image with how we look to others. Whereas if a lot of times you go elsewhere, you go to like Europe, and it's like some of the first questions is, hey, what's your favorite book? It's a little more personal, or what was the last book you read? And so work isn't even on the table. And it's more of you can learn a lot about a person by saying, what's your favorite book, or what's the last book, or what's the last, where's your last vacation? It's a little more personal. You're not like an intruding personal, but it's a little more personal, like a little more connective. I don't know. And so I think that there's something to be said about that. Depends on the questions you're asking, but also, being in the right moment, the right time, so.
Yeah. Two is the guy's name is Patton that put that whole Montana festival on. He's the CEO. But that was one of the biggest things he was saying. And the whole thing is basically, because Bozeman's growing so fast and what's happening, what's going on. And he said, we really don't want Bozeman and Montana to be a place when you just say to somebody, what do you do? And all they do, and like their response is just a job.
Right.
He's like, and he was born in Great Falls, and he's been here his whole life. But I was just very impressed with the whole atmosphere. They had, like, he said he'd come do the podcast too, which I'm looking forward to, but it's something I definitely recommend to anyone that's local to go to that Montana Fest.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I didn't know what it was going to be, but now I want to tell everyone about it who's, interested in the town and the community and the history and
Sure.
the building and everything that's going on.
No, they've done a good job. Some people poo-poo downtown Bozeman, and I appreciate that they're leaving the Main Street corridor for the most part alone. And granted, the ripple effect is especially as you go north, where you're starting to get some of the high rises and the congestion in there. But I don't know. I was having this conversation yesterday with a gal I was talking with, and just that whole idea is like, I hate to see Bozeman. I've been here 30 years. I hate to see it changing in some ways, but at the same time, I'm not going to change it. I can't stop it.
Yeah.
And so in some ways you can embrace it, and you can help make the change more pleasant, or you can be welcoming. You can embrace it. And there are some great benefits to the changes that are going on here in Bozeman in a lot of regards, between, food and our art venue and the music that's coming. I mean, Social Distortion is, I love my punk alternative, and Social Distortion's coming next month. They're kind of an older band, but
Yeah.
I mean, we get some great music venues in the area, and that wouldn't have happened, 30 years ago. There was some music, but and the university and their sports program, the football program, very, very proud of what those guys have done. It's a couple of heartbreakers here over the last 4 years. Last year, this last year in particular. But there's pros and cons with everything. For everything you gain, you got to sacrifice something else. And so, I'm ready to get out of Bozeman, not Montana, but I'm ready to get away from here just because I'm a small town person. But I'm glad to know that when I do leave, is Bozeman's not too far away to come to.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was kind of saying, he's like, in 100 years, like, he's like, we can help control the way this goes. He's like, in 100 years, people are gonna be like, oh, who are the people sitting in these rooms figuring out what's going on? He's like, these are the people, like, these are the conversations we're having. And it's nice that somebody's really trying to be intentional instead of just saying, like, build everything as big as you want. And
right.
But I've still never been in an environment. It doesn't bother me much, but it's so he said, he's from Great Falls. He's been here. He's Montana's whole life, and a lot of the people that spoke, and they said their thing is they gave you like a little bode or a little book. It was like the Montana Festival Code, and it says by grace or by journey, you're a Montanan if you live here. And I'm like, man, I never heard a Montanan say that. Usually it's like, oh, all these goddamn people moving here.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, hey, like, there's a lot of problems and we can complain about them. And everyone has a right to complain if they want, but you should also like start to suggest some solutions other than just everyone leave.
Yeah.
It was very refreshing just to see.
Well, and a lot of it's about perspective too, where we're sitting now, is 150 years ago this is Crow and Blackfoot and this is native area. And so I'm pretty sure is when they saw a bunch of these wagons coming over and the miners coming over the hill, and they're like, what the fuck, and this is ours. And so I think that it's just the next level. As the next person is like, no, this is mine now, and you can't have it or what have you. And I think that you just got to, part of it's just evolution, and you can evolve in a thoughtful, safe way, or you can do it in a very dangerous, unthoughtful way. And I think that it's important that we do it in a safe, thoughtful way, and keep Bozeman classy, because it's a classy community. It really is. And you get out of Bozeman, you go to Belgrade and Manhattan. I know they have a different perspective of Bozeman, Los Angeles, or but I truly, it's a classy place.
And even like it's clean downtown. Like the city is a clean city. Like a lot of cities are disgusting.
Yeah.
Like the filth of, to that too, there's quite a few different like talks, and they did some storytelling stuff that were Native Americans, and they really touched on that and reminded everyone what it was like here 150 years ago.
Yep.
So yeah, it was that was cool to be part of that.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah. What else you got to tell us about yourself, Kraig?
I got a question. If you could maybe explain or talk a little bit about, and I have a hunch, so maybe I'm wrong about this, but my assumption is that 15 years ago you were a very different person. You were working in construction. I'm curious about, like, it seems like you've evolved, you as a person significantly. I would imagine like that's been kind of a long journey. And so if you could talk about like your transition in your career, to transition into what you're doing now, and how that's kind of shaped who you are now. I get the sense that you kind of care, the way you carry yourself and your perspective has changed a lot. And so if you could just kind of walk us through how that evolved.
Yeah. Well, life's a process. And it's all about chapters for me. You close out one chapter, you start another chapter, whether it's a physical chapter or a mental chapter or whatever, a job, the people you meet, your friend group, whatever it is. And there's no definitive, this chapter closed, anyone. It's a lot of, they all overlap, right? I mean, it's just how it is. But I don't know, just life as a whole, to me, it's about perspective and growth. And I think some people want to grow and some people don't want to. Some people want to wallow in their sorrow and have this poor me attitude. And other people are, I think, accepting and they want to grow and kind of move through it. Because you can't change the past, but you can learn from the past and grow from the past and go from there. And so that's kind of been my perspective, especially as I get older. Just a reflection. I think the farther down the road you get, the road's longer and so reflective. But just over life, the big choices, the military. The other thing we didn't talk about is after the Army, I got out. I went Air Guard. I was Air Guard for 6 years, and I deployed to the Middle East a second time to the UAE. It was a cakewalk. It was a completely different experience. We weren't getting shot at. I was swimming in a swimming pool every night. I was drinking a beer. It was very easy. But I was away from home, away from my family, those kinds of things. And the people I met, good friends and some not so good experiences, but just, I think life and I don't know. I've tried really hard to self-reflect as much as I can. And different times it's hard. It's hard to look in the mirror and see the person that's truly there. Cause I think we all have our own perception of ourselves. But the reality is that everybody else sees us differently based on, whatever it is their perception of us is or how we've treated them. And I think as I've looked back on my life, as I've done some pretty horrible things to some wonderful people have done some pretty horrible things to me. And it's kind of, it's formed who I am. But to go back and to forgive or to try to forgive or to ask for forgiveness as best as you can in some ways. But I don't know, I guess my evolution with my wife now, she's really opened my eyes. She's a fireball. And so she's really helped me do some reflection on myself as far as growth and realize that I'm not always the person that I think I am. And she's pretty good. Women have a good way of doing that, of saying, you're kind of a dumbass, And it takes a little while. It's like, she's right, But I would say her, and then my stepdaughter, now has been a tremendous impact on me is my first marriage. My wife had a son, and it wasn't an easy transition. It was tough. And this one, it's not that it's easy, but my daughter she's a joy. And even from, I came into her life when she was about 5 or 6, and just the relationship we have. I mean, different times and growing up there's stuff, but she's a great kid and I love her. And she's really changed my perspective on life. And I think kids do that for you. Is, you got to make sure that they're okay and you're scared and that they're doing the right thing and what have you. And so between her and my wife, they've helped mellow me out in some ways. But I don't know. I would say reflection, and then trying to change and to grow. Over these last couple of years, I said I got burned out with my last job, and I did. I mean, it was just the stress in managing. You're managing between $250,000 and $500,000 a month, and you're trying to reconcile all of that, and you're up on the table at 4:00 in the morning, and you got paperwork everywhere, and you're trying to bill and you're trying to pay people, and the stress of that, and then you're managing 4 or 5 different subcontractors, and those subcontractors have 5 to 10 employees, and so at any given time you have 20 to 30 people running around somewhere, and you're responsible ultimately for all of them. And when somebody hits a sprinkler or hits a hydrant or breaks a skid steer or something, it's like you are ultimately responsible. And it's just the stress of that, it burned me out. And so over these last couple of years, I love to read. I love to the audible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've done probably close to like 100 books in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking like Where the Wild Things Are kinds of books. I'm talking like some good, history books. And then I'll go down a tangent and after like 2 months or whatever, I'd say I'm kind of a subject matter expert on something because it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
And I just read 3 or 4 books or listened to 3 or 4 books on it and what have you. And so that's helped me with some different perspective too, like Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning. It's like, what a great book for, when you think your life is shit, to know what Viktor Frankl went through and how he came through that and to make it to the next chapter. Right. Everybody has their problems, but some people have some serious, like crazy stuff, to survive what he survived and went through. And so, books are great, and trying to learn about the past and better understand. And even as a history major with both an associate's and a bachelor, which not all that impressive, but I used to think I was pretty good with some histories, World War II and Montana history and what have you. And I just realized is like, I'm so ignorant. And as every day goes by, I think that's part of it. Is I realize how much I don't know. Whereas when I was younger, there's kind of, I call it kind of, an ignorant arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
Is especially growing up in a small town. I think it's when you're a medium fish or a large fish in a small town, is it's really easy to think you're the shit, right? And then you realize as you maybe leave or as time goes by, it's like I was dumb. And some of the things I said it out of ignorance. And as just as I get older and I realize and I learn more as I realize how much I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it like feeds you, right? Is it, you want to learn more as best as you can. Or for me anyways, is it makes me want to be more knowledgeable, better, whatever else it is. And so I'd say that's kind of my evolution, especially over the last couple of years. I'm going through a process like of growth, I would say, over these last couple of years of complete 180 to go from being a contractor for 20 years, and working in the trades to like being burned out with it and to the point where I almost don't even enjoy it, to go completely different. I mean,
How old are you now?
49.
Okay. Man, well, good for you. Like, I think it's so hard to make a career change and to like to change yourself. I would imagine that it's like, I think it's really hard for people. And so like, it seems like you've kind of done that gracefully, and maybe it hasn't felt that way, but
yeah, it hasn't. It's great to learn new things. I think, like the new career change, I still don't know if I've made a career change. I mean, I'm still kind of in purgatory, I'd say. I mean, it's not like, I'm going to get rich doing what I'm doing, which I'm not a money person, but I'm just saying is the idea though, there's definitely the potential is there. But also just enjoying your job, I think is huge. And I enjoy what I do. I have ideas where I would like to take it more on a different level, but yeah, I'm content with where I'm at.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I get that too. And you say that though, because I mean, I was a dairy farmer most of my life. And then it was just construction. Like I've been doing nothing but physical labor like my entire life up until the last 4 or 5 years, and it's still been partial because I was still like all last summer I was still siding houses just to supplement for income. But like my father killed himself literally just working 12, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week for 40 something years, and I'm like, man, I can't stay on the same path because if I just that's what I've been thinking, man, what's a different way? And that's when I got into this driving and stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, you can make a living and not just abuse your body to all hell.
Yep.
And then
you're smart to learn that early. And I think boys,
I just had I just had a perfect example in front of me too. I don't know that I'm any smarter than anyone.
But you saw it, I would say. I mean, you can tell people or show people, something all you want. You can tell them something until you're blue in the face. But if they don't want to see it, then they won't. And I think that was important that you saw that, because I think you're spot on. I think especially boys, young men in particular, is there's this, they're indestructible. And when I was younger, I was big, I was strong. I liked to show off how big and strong I was. And I have a tendency to work harder than smarter.
You mean back when you were 6'3"?
Back when I was 6'3". And it does, is it plays a toll, especially the gangly guys. I mean, we break, we break, everybody breaks. But I mean, going through the trades, I mean, everybody makes fun of my finger. That happened on your neighbor's house. I was trying to get a screw out, and that's a wood chisel is what that is. Took my finger half off. Yeah. I've fallen. I've broken my back in 3 different places fallen off of a bench. I got a metal pin in my arm from a torn bicep. I've beat my body up, and I don't know if I can make it to my 70s or my 80s, what my body's going to do. And I think if you can, the trades are great. I love the trades, and I think that we need more tradespeople, but you need to be safe and you need to follow the rules. And I think if you do anything dangerous long enough, at some point it's going to get you. Something's going to get you, either whether it's on purpose or on accident or what have you. And so I think you're smart is to go in a direction, that you're using your brain more, and you can capitalize and figure out how to make a living providing a service that doesn't beat you up, especially your body. Because I mean, you got one body, it doesn't last forever, and technology is great, and science is great, and medicine's great, but when it goes, and so take care of it.
When we were on the farm, we had these upright silos we'd fill, and you fill them, and there's doors you take out as it comes down so the unloader can unload it. And it's kind of weird to describe, but the feed in the silo is what holds the doors in. And then they're tapered the way they sit, right. So that, but you'd have to close them all when you're filling it. So you'd climb all the way up, and it's sketchy because they have these 2 little locks that hold them, but it's not. And I'd do it when I was a teenager, and I'd sit there and I'd go, man, if I do this every year for the rest of my life, I feel like my odds
you're gonna fall
of dying are pretty damn high. Like it was pretty sketchy, but I was limber and young, and but I was like, I thought that growing up, like, man, this kicks my ass. Yeah. But like I said to my buddy yesterday, I'm like, that 3 days of socializing with people wore me out more than I could work 14 hours a day manual labor for a week. Yeah. That's what I'm conditioned for.
No, there's different kinds of exhaustion. There's, the physical exhaustion, which I think is to stay fit. And that's part of the reason why my winter weight is now my everyday weight is I don't exercise the way that I used to. I used to, walk 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 steps a day. Mm-hmm. I don't do that anymore. And it shows. But there's definitely different types of exhaustion. My wife is a teacher here at Hawthorne, and she comes home and she's exhausted, and she's an extrovert, but come the weekend she's an introvert. She doesn't want to engage with anybody because she has to engage with 20 kids plus whoever else. And I get that too, whether it's the stress of finances or the stress of managing people or talking with people. Because it's very different when it's your job to converse with people, to sell, or to whatever it is, to network. it's work, and there is the human body needs break, whether it's physically or emotionally, mentally, and you're absolutely right. Is the exhaustion you can get interacting with people, it can be absolutely, and depending on the person or the group of people, is it can even be more exhausting to interact with those people.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
I said it to my girlfriend yesterday. I was like, man, I feel like I just been working for 2 weeks. I'm like, God damn, this is mellow. This I could do this all day, but
Yeah.
like being around hundreds of people like that, and it's loud. And I grew up in a town of 1,500 people on a farm, and I was homeschooled. So that's what I'm not conditioned for. But working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's what I'm conditioned for.
Yeah. No, what I think too is the brain is.
But I think, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I think you're making a transition into conditioning your body and your mind to do other things.
Yeah,
it's gonna take some time, right? You're not gonna like you've taken 20 years or more to get to where you're at now, and now you're like transitioning.
You're finding your new norm. You know, you're reprogramming. It takes a little while to figure out what your new norm is.
Yeah, and I'll still always just enjoy like a quiet day by myself too. Yeah. That's how I'm going to recover.
Yeah, no, that's how I'm 100% with you. Yeah. I'm totally an introvert. I can be somewhat extroverted in socializing with people for a little while, but I'm definitely throw the dogs in the truck and go off somewhere by myself.
That's like, I mean, that leads back to the driving. That's what I always love. It's great talking to people, but sometimes they get out of the car. I'm like, just be in the road for the next hour and a half. Yep.
No, I'm the same. It's great that way, but we do a boys trip. I have a group of guys with most of them have Toyotas, not Chevys, because I'm not sure too many Chevys would do so well. But we do a lot of Southwest trips. Usually every year we'll go, Moab and St. George or the Grand Canyon, whatever, with off-road overlanding, and usually everybody involved it's our unplug, and we're all solo in our own vehicles with the exception of maybe a dog. So you can listen to podcasts, or you can listen to a book, or you can listen to music, and you're alone, but you have the safety of others until you get to wherever you are. And then it's easy, but it's that recharge is so important. You got to find your Zen, whatever it is, and make sure that you make that a priority to recharge those batteries. Otherwise, you're no good to anybody else. I'm a big believer in that.
You're making me think. Yesterday, one of the speakers said they took a few questions after, and one woman said, if you're going to build all these buildings and like there's not enough parking, but there's no public transportation, and the guy's like, well, I don't mean this like with any disrespect, but this is Montana, like we're in the mountains. So a lot of times we do need to just drive. He's like, and we usually do the Montana carpool, which is when everyone gets in their own truck and drives by themselves.
Yep.
Like, yep, that's definitely Montana.
Yep.
No, when you said you guys but you guys are, off-roading with your vehicle. So I get it.
No, but I, there is is that cultural? Is that part of just being in rural areas? I think people are okay with being alone a little bit more, I think, than, I don't know that. I mean, that's maybe not very fair, but I get exhausted. We took the girls, we went to New York City here a handful of years ago. We were in where
Manhattan?
No, like downtown where
Times Square.
Times Square. We were in Times Square, and I had like a emotional breakdown because it was an overload. It wasn't like Vegas overload. Vegas I can handle for 3 or 4 days. New York City, I could handle it for about 2 or 3 hours between the lights and the cars and the tall buildings, and I couldn't see the sun and I couldn't see mountains, and I didn't know which way was north or which way was south. I couldn't do it. There's no way I could do something like that for more than a day. It was a breakdown. Like I could not do that. And so to each their own, but I think part of it is like being from Montana is, between being able to see for 50 miles and to see the sun and to see the mountains and to know which way is north, which way is south, and to be content with the quiet of it is very, very different than people who have to be engaged all the time or what have you.
Yeah, it's like just independence. Everyone's very independent here. It's funny you say that because that's exactly how I feel in New York City. And I was in Vegas recently. I'm like, this isn't as bad. For some reason, like there's the amount of shit that's going on is crazy here, but it's like you kind of know what it is.
You can still, like in Vegas, there's big mountains that are
you can just see like you can see the rest of Nevada,
I-
around it.
I like Vegas. I like Vegas, but like I said, I like it for 4 days and I'm done. I can't do Vegas.
There's
for
some
more than
really
4
cool
days.
spots outside of Vegas too, like
Yep.
20, 30 minutes outside of Vegas. There's some really cool four-wheeling,
Yep.
some really cool mountains, in like the fall.
Yep.
Great time to go.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
not too
that
hot. It's like 80,
spring,
75.
spring in the desert, unless if it's raining,
Yeah.
and then fall. I love the Southwest, the desert. And
Mhm.
October is
Yeah.
phenomenal. I agree.
Zion National Park's right, like basically right there.
Zion,
It's like an
Bryce,
hour and 20
St.
minutes
George.
from there. Yeah.
Yep.
That place is unreal, man.
Yep.
Something really special about that place.
Yep, I agree. No, it's it is. It's great. It's kind of been put on the map. The tow truck guy there that goes and he's got his own TV show on YouTube or whatever. Matt's off road.
Never heard of
He
it.
does, and so he's out of the kind of the St. George hurricane area.
Oh,
They
so
have
he's
some-
always there.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's right
you
there.
have a lot of that place has definitely been discovered. It's on the map,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's a great area.
Craig, what are you reading these days? What's the last book you read?
Right now, I'm in the middle of Guns, Germs, and Steel, which is a dry. Every once in a while, I hit these dry history
It's
books.
a hard book to read.
Oh man,
Mhm.
but it's good. It's informative, but it's just all over the place. It's
Jared Diamond.
Jared Diamond. Yeah, good job. Yep, that's exactly.
I
But
started the book. I never finished it. It was fucking dry.
it's dry, but it's good. It's another book. It kind of reminds me of 1491, which was about kind of South America, Mesoamerica, pre-Columbus. Because 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So 1491. So basically a look at the the Americas, and so it was very similar. It was good, and I got some stuff out of it, but it's not like this is awesome. It's why people don't like history is it's just informative. But anyways, I'm on that one. I think that's that, and I've got.
Have you read Yuval Harari's book?
No, I think he's real similar. Though.
Sapiens?
Yeah, he's got a few out there.
Yeah, he does.
Sapiens, and he's got basically looking back, looking forward, looking at the present.
Yeah.
I have not. He's in my queue.
So I would say like that's like Jared Diamond's book, but much more entertaining.
Yep.
A lot easier to read.
I have to take a look at that. I think he was inspired by Diamond. I think he read Guns, Germs, and Steel and said, "Hey, I can do that." And so that's, I think, his history.
Yeah.
But I haven't read him yet. No, I'm a Michener fan, James Michener. I like his books are. I think my first book with Michener was The Bridge over Andau, which was kind of as a perspective of the Hungarian Revolution of '56. And some of the statistics in it weren't very correct because he wrote it like within a year of it happening, but it was great. And then that turned me on to Alaska, James Michener's Alaska, phenomenal book. Poland was a great book, but he usually will have like 3 or 4 parallel plots, and he'll start back, like thousands of years or hundreds of years, and it's hard sometimes to follow those through to the main. But if you can hang with a Michener's a good historical fiction writer if you like the histories on that one. But yeah, a little bit of everything.
Have you read the Empire of the Summer Moon book?
No.
It's about Native American
the
history.
Comanches.
Yeah.
The Comanches out of Texas. I did, and with the Parker family, the little girl that got kidnapped, and then her being raised up by the Comanches and getting put back into civilization, and her complete breakdown. Yeah, I did read that. Sorry,
I read like the first 50 pages and I was like, "Fuck, this is too rough for me." I was like, "I'm gonna come back to this," but I'm like, "Nah."
It's brutal.
Yeah.
When you first asked, I was thinking the one that was made into the movie here with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Which one are you talking about?
Something Summer Moon. I don't know.
Empire of the Summer Moon.
No, it was.
That's one I just said.
Right? Yeah. Sorry. But when you asked, that was what I was thinking that you.
Well,
I haven't read it, but I saw them.
It's coming out now.
Soon. No, it's already out. It's already where he poisons his wife, and they're in Oklahoma, and
I don't know this one.
Anyway, it's a movie. That's what I was thinking. You were asking if I had read that, but no, the other one was the brutality of both sides, but the Comanche. I mean, They were brutal badasses. One book, as we're kind of on the native, one book that I read that was a pleasant surprise. The Frontiersman, and I can't think of the author, but it's Simon Butler, but his real name was Simon Kenton. It's kind of the Ohio River frontier in Kentucky, and kind of the expansion there, and then kind of with the Shawnee and whatever. Phenomenal book. If you ever have
The Frontiersman.
The Frontiersman. I can't think of who the author is off the top of my head, but probably one of the best books I've read in a long time. Great book.
If you're usually audiobook guy or
read
book?
I do both, mostly Audible, the audio, just because of I don't sit still very well, and then just by default is I've always got ear pods in, and I'm trying to multitask. So if I'm working in the garage or building something, or if I have the dogs, or I'm going on a hike, or I'm driving, you usually are deadheading one way, so that gives you an hour or whatever. So I'm usually an audio guy. Yeah. But I like the book in my hands. I'm not like a tablet reader kind of person. Yeah. But yeah, the Comanches, they were unbelievable.
Yeah, it's wild because we're talking about like knowing your history, and like that it was so brutal that I didn't even want to read it. Like the reality of what went on here. Yeah, from both sides.
Yep. No, it's yep. No, I thought it was well done, well written. But yeah, brutal.
Yeah, and I think from what I recall with that book is the author was trying to take a neutral stance. And just sort of tell both sides of the story.
And I think he does a pretty good job because the brutality on both sides. Yeah, absolutely. I think as it was a well written book, but yeah, I'm sorry you couldn't get past the first 50 pages.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was like, man, I'm not in the right place in my life. Like this is, I don't want to. I'm like that with scary movies. I'm like, look, there's enough shit that goes on in this life. I don't need to like go watch somebody's made up shit and then try to sleep at night. So I just didn't. I was like, I don't.
Yeah, no, it's I'm not a horror movie kind of guy either, but
yeah,
no, I hear you. But
it's still on my shelf. Someday I'll get back to it. It's
good. No, there's great books, especially too. Is funny. A lot of people. I watched the movie. It's like, dude, movie's nothing like Lonesome Dove. I just finished Lonesome Dove here. Mari McMurtry, and because the old series, back in the late '80s with Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones, they both did a great job. But the book, what a great book, and they're coming to Montana, and it's kind of, I was telling you, is it's kind of the story of Nelson's story, and granted those guys went up farther north, and 10 years ahead of what Nelson's story did, but just a great book. Very, very well written. If you like your Western history, and especially Montana, I would recommend anybody that lives in Montana, you need to read Lonesome Dove. Yeah.
I've heard that.
Great writing, great book. He did a great job. The Virginian, I think, is a classic. That's your original Western, from going from dime novels to an actual novel. Owen Wister went to school there with Teddy Roosevelt. And so Teddy Roosevelt helped to, the Western image. But the Virginian's it's a great book too. There's more Wyoming, but some of the mannerisms of the West he does a great job with that.
You ever listen to any of those Jack Carr books?
I haven't done Jack Carr. No,
they're kind of like a lot of military kind of meathead, but they're fun stories to read too. Just like action and like, guys that are military or ex-military, and like, but they're fun stories, and like the second or third book like ties into stuff out here in Montana. But it's current, and it's just like this guy like post-military and stuff that's going on, but they're like telling stories of stuff going on in Whitefish and everything. And like, you'd like the one guy because he's got his Land Cruiser. That's like his prized possession. Did you ever read any of those books or no? What the hell's the guy's name? Reese. Reese is the character. Reese is the guy in this Land Cruiser. They're fictional.
The book's about you, dude.
No, it's no. I'm
sure they're fictional, but the guy's got a long military background, so they're kind of fictional, but they're kind of like
they're mixed.
Yeah, sure. There's like a bunch of stuff. Like they all had to be like, there's be a handful of times it'll just be like redacted, like stuff they took out, but they're fictional, but they're fun stories.
Sure.
And they're just kind of meathead stories if you like guns and trucks and stuff like that.
No, it's good to mix it up. Some books I read, was it the Rising of Rising of the Red Sun. It was a history of Japan and World War II. And, you get, especially if you can go down some World War II war, Holocaust stuff, you need a break after emotional break after some of those. You listen to a book that's, 40 hours or, it takes you a while and you get done with it and you're kind of exhausted. You need something light. You need some brainless.
I was going to say to you, I was thinking that there's a guy who's a podcaster, and he said years ago, me and Kyle had heard him. He said, if you want to get better at speaking, just sit down with a buddy and record yourself. And once you listen back, you'll hear all your mannerisms and all your ums and so's and likes. And I just heard him saying not long. Well, I think I heard this a couple of years ago from him, but he was saying that he likes to really read something fictional at night because he doesn't like getting in his mind. So I'll try to read something that's like just a good story.
Sure.
If it's nighttime.
Sure.
I think I told Kyle I just finished reading The Alchemist.
Oh, nice.
Now we're reading a book about what is it? I think it's the guy that he did the Iditarod with his sled dogs. I don't know if that's the name of the book. It's a book that Amy recommends, but they're just fun stories to listen to.
Nice. Yeah, I did one. The meat eater guy here. Can't think of his name.
Steve Ranella.
Yep. Yeah, he did the one of taking down the buffalo in Alaska.
That was a great one.
It was a great.
Yeah.
I just finished that. I don't know, last week or so.
I thought the same thing.
He just his and I did it on Audible and he read it. It was him, and so it's I appreciate him because he's pretty down to earth, even though I know he's done very, very well for himself. My wife actually has taught his kids. So my wife's like, oh yeah, I know him, and I was like, I teach everybody's kids, but great. So some of that, it's nonfiction, but a great story where you don't have to do a lot in the way of thinking. But I really dig him. He did a great job with it.
Yeah, he's a great writer and a great storyteller, and I really enjoyed that one. I did that one on a long drive. I think when I was like driving out here at one point, and I was like, this is a great book to listen to, and I'm coming back to Montana, and it was just
yep. I didn't know there was buffalo in Alaska. I mean,
yeah,
in the story, I mean, I really appreciate a lot of his side stories of on the Flathead area there, and how the bison got up there and what have you. He did a great job.
I put in for the bison for Gardner.
Nice. Yeah. I had a friend who put in for that. It was actually one of my army buddies years ago. It was the lifetime. What is it, like 2 days, 3 day window, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So a group of us went down there and tried to help him, but this was years ago. We didn't even see one, so his window closed. But
yeah, everyone always says I've been putting in for my whole life. I'm like, well, someone's going to get it, so you might as well keep putting in.
Yeah,
a couple bucks or something.
Yeah, no, it's good opportunity.
Be good eating.
Be a great lifetime hunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Well, hopefully you get that. If you need some help,
I'll let you know for sure.
Let me know. Huh?
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Anyway,
I didn't realize Tim was telling me that you're a construction manager.
Yeah.
Tell him about that project, Kyle. He was just asking about it.
That was in San Diego. That was like a conference center attached to a hotel in downtown San Diego.
So that's not very far from the baseball park.
No, that's
the ocean front's just right a couple blocks away.
Yeah, so that's like 150 feet from the ocean.
Nice.
We were just right on basically the job site was, I guess the corner of the building was probably 75 feet from the water.
Oh wow.
So all the footings we dug at high tide, they would have water in them.
You guys pumping it out?
Yeah, pumping it out, and then we set up pumps really constantly to dewater the site just so that we could work. And then we'd always pour concrete at low tide.
Low tide, yeah. Nice. No, great. Yeah, San Diego's a great city.
Yeah,
I really dig it down there. Oh, it's nice to bounce around, have a job where you can kind of travel around. That's great.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess what I would say. Like it can be a bad thing too, but if you could look at the positive of it, like construction's cool because you could go all over the world if you really wanted to. If you had the desire to go all around the world and go build like really cool, complex, fun things and learn a lot about different cultures and whatnot.
Yep, I agree. I did Habitat for Humanity. I was able to in 2008 I wrote an essay and I won for the International Habitat. So then they sent me to Pascagoula. I went and I built with Jimmy Carter
Where the hell is that?
Pascagoula's in Mississippi, just kind of southeast of
Mhm.
Biloxi. So, and then the next year I went with them to Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome. What a beautiful country, and just
Mhm.
learning how they do things different. Then the next year I went to DC and helped them, and then I just got busy. But to just be able to go and the Thailand experience was pretty magical.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Air Force there, I went to Croatia for 3 weeks or so. We helped do some remodel on a hospital over there, but just to be submersed in the culture, and I loved it. I agree. It's a great opportunity to travel. Good excuse to multitask. It really is. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you could, you could go really anywhere and build anything, really, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody this week who was telling me, who's in the construction industry as well, and he studied architecture, and he was like, man, people who are like in, whether it's design, building design or construction, he's like, every you have to go to Qatar.
Yeah.
And he goes, like, if you go to Qatar, you'll be in like kind of your own little industry's heaven, because it's like the most amazing buildings you've ever seen, and they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And he said like the average building in downtown Qatar, and there's thousands of them, are 100 stories.
Yeah.
Like every building. And he's like, every single one of those buildings would be the coolest building in any city in the United States.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's thousands of them.
Yep.
Because they just have I don't know, but I'll, the way he kind of explained it is they have so much money that they're like, all right, cool, build the fucking coolest thing ever. Just, there's no limits. Like, there's no, money doesn't matter. Let's do the wildest fucking thing.
Yep.
And so now I'm like, oh, I never really thought about like going over there. And now I'm like, yeah, that would be cool to go for a week or something.
Yeah. The Middle East, I think some people can be a little intimidated, but Qatar, I've been to Qatar. Very, very groovy. It's cool. Not necessarily out and about like downtown or, in the cities, but been there, and you can definitely see the wealth there.
Yeah.
Dubai is
I
very
said the same thing
similar.
about Dubai.
Yeah. Almost like sickening in a way, but it's beautiful.
Sickening
it's like,
in what way?
Just the wealth, see all of that, and then it's put in. I don't know, to be put into that, and then I think of it too is
like the dichotomy.
Yeah, because to me, like Dubai and the Burj Khalifa and what have you, it's almost like Vegas, not like Bellagio Vegas and Venetian Vegas, like on steroids. That's how I would describe Dubai, like on major steroids.
Yeah.
And it's cool. But it's so hot there. It's like you can't hardly even enjoy it. You have to be in the mall or you have to be inside because it's so hot there. But it's beautiful. But when I was in Dubai and even Abu Dhabi, there is seeing the architecture, and it's cool because most of it's new for the most part. And I just wonder, like anybody who's in the trades or in construction is like, building something new is easy. Keeping it maintained, 20 years down the road, when you have to remodel it or upkeep it, and I look at, like, when I look at Dubai, I think, man, I would not want to
maintain
upkeep all of this stuff. That's what I think of. But the Middle East, you have your different pockets, definitely Qatar, UAE. It's amazing.
Have you been to Spain?
I have not been to Spain. Nope.
So this kind of like idea of maintenance is kind of an interesting one, but, about 3 years ago, I went to the Alhambra, which is like a big like fort. It was like it's like a fort, castle, village. Really, this whole entire city at the time was like built, and it was surrounded by this like massive wall. And then they built this whole really at the time city out of like basically brick. What we would like. It's basically brick. They're not the same brick that we think of. They're much larger pieces but they were brick. And so you look at like, and it's, I don't know, I forget how many thousands of years old this thing is, but like, it's still in really good shape Partly because the materials they used, but it's just like fascinating. They made all these like waterway canals, and they did it all with gravity fed, of like the water comes off the mountainside, and then it like feeds into all these different spots, like zigzags around the whole city. And so when there's water flowing through this stream, it flows through the entire city and gets everywhere, just all straight up gravity fed.
Yep.
And it waters all the gardens, and you're just like, this is fucking crazy that these people built this, and they thought through all of this, and still to this day, like they don't have sprinklers,
right?
Because it's all gravity fed. Then it was so well laid out and thought out. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I think modern technology, we can get pretty arrogant.
We'll get lazy, right? Like, oh, you just put a pump on it.
Yeah, but also just
bring electricity to the pump.
Lazy as well. But the engineering marvels. I mean, when you look back on time, all over the world, and I mean, even here in the Gallatin Valley, or even in Madison County, I mean, the old irrigation, like those guys dug that stuff by hand. And to be able to figure out how to bring water from a mile or 2 miles up, and and it's coming down and it's irrigating. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy, the thought process and how they were able to go out there and do that. I couldn't go out and dig in my mud and get the water to flow right, through my backyard without making a big mess, and somewhere it would leak out somewhere. It's unbelievable. So yeah, building technology is amazing.
That's like our buddy Dempsey's family's got a ranch over in Alder, and he's like, oh, I'm changing waters because they still just got the flood irrigation.
Yeah.
So he's just running around 3 times a day and, plugging off different spots, and like that's how they did it. And yeah, like you said, they dug that by hand.
Yeah. It sounds unbelievable. That's a pretty area over there. I sure like that Ruby.
It is. Yeah.
It's
really nice.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I love it over there. Great.
Guys want to wrap it up here?
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Kraig, this was a pleasure. Thank you.
No, pleasure's mine.
North California.
North California. There we go. Man. There's a test and you just passed. Good job.
I see why all the clients like you. This was just a mellow. It was a good hang.
Yeah. I appreciate it. It's good to hang with you guys. It's good to get to know both of you guys, even though next time, I gotta go back and listen to the podcast, because I was going to start asking you guys questions. I was like, I probably is out there somewhere. I got to go back.
Or, Ryan, I think you met Ryan when we did the party at the shop, but he came on and said the same thing. Next time I'm going to interview you guys. I'm like, no, you can just listen to the other one.
Yeah, you got to go back, because
we've interviewed each other.
Yeah. No, that's just it. Just go back. Like I said, I've listened. I listened to.
Don't go too far back. We've evolved.
No, that's good though. It's good to see the evolution, right? I think it's great. It's all a process. Especially when you're trying something new. Kudos to you guys for doing it. I think it's all. And I mean, just it is a process, I'm sure, between the technology, the microphones, and trial and error, and figuring it out, and the right equipment, and whatever else.
If you go back enough too, just the sound quality too, and everything is. Like next week we'll upgrade some cameras and some lights. But yeah.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. That you guys are doing that
we solve one problem, we create 2, and then we solve one more, and then we create 2.
Sure. Well, that's life, right? The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know as much as you think you do. It's never ending. It's never ending. So kudos to you guys.
I was showing Kyle a video. The title of this guy's video was "Sometimes the problem is the best solution." You try to fix that problem.
Like you just leave it alone. It works.
Yeah. Well, and again, the more complicated it is, and you keep it simple. Gravity is an amazing way to move water. You just got to make sure, and not having a whole bunch of electronics.
When we get down here, I'll show you some cool pictures of that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
I was fucking amazed. It was so cool.
Because so much time is spent on the Roman aqueducts and
This
hanging
is
gardens
the same,
of Babylon
same
and what have you.
yeah.
But it's water's awesome. So especially out west here, it's water is the gold of the West, and moving it around and getting it where it needs to go. So no, I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kraig.